Good morning to you all, you wonderful, glorious, fabulous people. This is Wake Up with Sonia Poulton and guests, and it is exactly 9 a.m. British summertime, and I am delighted to be here with you. Oh, yes, I am. How are you doing? How are you doing? What's the weather like where you are? I know it's a rotten way to start the morning stream, but good morning. The weather is absolutely outrageously awful out here. But there you go. I see everybody already in the chat. Good morning to my two beautiful mods. My two beautiful mods, Zoe and Shin. And good morning to Beats and Tapes and Catherine and Craig and Carly and Tara and Heldu and Marie and me and Joseph and Marcuson and Cavan and Louise and Halo and Julie and Sean and Catherine. Did I always say Catherine? You cannot have enough Catherines, can you? And good morning to you all, each and every one of you. And good morning, Jay. Good morning. Good morning so much to you. How are you? How are you doing? What date is it? Monday, 14th of October. It's my niece's birthday. Happy birthday, Sarah. Happy birthday. So what do we got coming up today on Wake Up with Sonia Poulton? At 9:10, we're going to be joined by Andrew Drury, journalist. He had a front page article on the Daily Express this weekend because he talked to one of the youngest people to be convicted for taking part in the so-called British riots. We'll also be talking to Jasveer Singh from the Sikh Press Association about why Sikhs are targeted worldwide and particularly in the UK. And at 10 a.m, we'll be joined by the lovely Abby Wynne, she being the co-author of this fabulous book with Mark Atwood. She came on the show recently with Mark, but she's on her own today, and she's going to talk us through the doom and gloom of what we're all experiencing. And what else have we got? Well, the heart attack of Alex Salmond. Dr. David Cartland is before the GMC today. Then we have parricide, which appears to be either on the rise or they just want to write about it more in newspapers. That, of course, is the killing of one's parents. Then we have missing Victoria Taylor and the unanswered questions. Of course, today is the last day for you to oppose the NI bill, which at the top of the list is mandatory jabbing of people. Then we have Kanye West's lawsuit. He's starting to catch up with his mate Diddy now. And beware, employment rights bill and why the green agenda is not green at all. And then we'll be looking at why Butlins is not family friendly at all. We'll also be looking at what happened at the LGBT conference last week. And finally, we will end on stop playing small. And stop playing small because this week is an Aries full moon. And Aries is the sign of the ram. It is ruled by Mars. It is me first. It's the first sign of the zodiac. And it asks you to be yourself, to express yourself fully. And that's what it's going to be asking you to do this week. And that's why we're going to be ending with, what is it? Love it, Sonia and Shin. Never enough Catherines. Never, indeed. What did he do this time, says Pink Diamond? You talking about Kanye West by any chance, my lovely? Kanye West is plenty. That lawsuit against him, which I've been looking at, is fairly horrendous. And can I just say, we're growing, people, thanks to you. Yes, we are. Friday's show has had almost 100,000 views across the platforms that we put it on. That's the full stream. 63,000 views alone on X. Some of our individual show clips have received 250,000 views and more, but it takes time and perseverance to encourage people to click on the full show. And we are on episode 41. Yes, we are. That's time and perseverance, and there's a lot more to come. So thank you. I appreciate it very, very much. Please keep spreading the word, liking, sharing, subscribing from little acorns and all that good stuff. We are a true community effort around here. I believe it takes a village to raise a child, and Wake Up is as much your baby as it is mine. And I love that. I love how we all kind of come together of a Monday and Friday morning and put the world to rights, basically. Thank you to everyone who has contributed to make it possible for me to be here today. I truly, truly appreciate you. And people, can I just say hello from Kimberley, South Africa? Good morning. Thank you, Marcus, and I appreciate that. And people, can I just say, we already have a remix of Good Morning Grand Risings. Yes, we do. And you know what? I'm going to play it for you. Yes, I am. Ready? Oh, can you hear that? I don't know if you can. And maybe you can, and maybe I just can't because I haven't got my earphones in. There you go. Oh, hello. Hello. Is that playing? Well, that's weird, people. Can you hear that? Can you hear that? No music. No, I can't either. That's odd, isn't it? Let's see what I can do. Let me see what I can do here. Excuse me, bear with me. It might be to do with this. No, we can't hear it, they're saying. Let's have a try. Let's have a try at something else. I hope you can. Let's let's try this. Oh, ready?
You can't handle the truth. Truth.
Good morning, beautiful people. We are live.
Good morning, Grand Risings. It's time to wake up with Sonia Poulton, Sonia Poulton, Sonia Poulton, Sonia Poulton.
Love it. Thank you, Marcuson, isn't it, Robert? Isn't that fabulous? Thank you, Marcuson, for doing a remix of that. I absolutely love it. You've completely NLP'd us in the house. We're all walking around singing Good Morning Grand Risings, which is just you've literally NLP'd us. And Soul Sound said, okay, this week I'm on it. The battle is on. Yes, Soul Sound. I see that you just sent me a musical version 2 minutes before the show started, which of course I didn't have time to listen to. But also, you are not alone, Soul Sound. The challenge really is on. John from Norwich, lovely John from Norwich, contacted me saying, hearing the AI theme tune has inspired me to come up with something myself, and I'll be playing John's tune on Friday, which is fabulous. It really is. We absolutely love it. And we were also playing that last night as well. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who has contributed in this way. It really touches me, you guys doing that. Thank you. And can I just also say, Chris Coverdale, he was on the other week and saying he wants to lawfully challenge what is going on. Do you remember that? I'm delighted to say things are happening behind the scenes. And I've introduced Chris to someone I believe is perfect to get things up and moving. She knows who she is. Thank you to those people who contacted me with an interest to get involved. It's all in hand. Yes, it is. It really is. And did anybody see that business with Trump? Anybody see that? They're saying that it was a potential third assassination attempt. Coachella rally. Vem Miller, 49, taken into custody after he was stopped at a checkpoint near the former president's rally in Coachella, California on Saturday. Local law enforcement claimed the incident is probably a third assassination attempt. That's if you believe the others were assassination attempts, of course. Grand Risings, Marsh Girl, and all you lovelies. Have to listen later today. Big love. And me is, are you telling me to calm down? Oh my God, no, not me. I'm practically incapable of calming down when I'm this hyped up. And also I'm a fire sign. So Aries full moon is really going to make me even more hype than normal. And Fallon Fox said, Trump's one of them. Pay no attention. I mean, I hear you. I hear you loud and clear. Emma says, morning, beautiful people. Yes, I saw that headline, said Marie. Starting to believe Trump can time travel, says Soul Sound. Good morning, Lorraine. Good morning to you all, you fabulous, glorious, wonderful people. Let me just check my first guest is here. Somebody I've talked to before, actually. Really interesting guy, very interesting history. I love people who have rich histories. I do. I can't help it. I'm entirely biased in that respect, and why not? So let's bring him in without further ado. And take it from there. Here he is. Good morning, Andrew Drury.
Good morning again, Sonia. I didn't expect to ever come back, but I'm glad you invited me.
Thanks to the lovely Nick, who pointed out this brilliant article you'd written. Andrew, well done. Congratulations. I know as a former newspaper journalist myself, I know what it takes to get a front page scoop, and it is not easy. There's a million other people out there wanting that front page, and you got it. You had a co-byline on Saturday in the Express. Of course, we can't name the person that you were interviewing because of legal restrictions. But you, Andrew, let's tell people a little bit about your background. First of all, you are a journalist. You're a documentary filmmaker. You have been a military man, if I remember correctly.
No.
Oh.
No, it's only because I've been front line. I can see how you get that.
So that's what it is. Is that what I've got confused with? When you say front line as a journalist?
Well, front line really started as a tourist, but then moved into journalism. So you'd have seen me many places: frontline Mosul, Syria, Afghanistan, even just recently as Ukraine. So I can see your confusion.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's very much appreciated. And the front line, not front line. I'm having quite a day today. This full moon's having an impact on me. This front page story said, I made a mistake, but I don't deserve a criminal record. This is about a 13-year-old girl who cried as she was sentenced for the so-called rioting that took place in the UK at the beginning of August. And we've talked about that a lot on this show, Andrew, and the wrongs and rights of it, and how Keir Starmer essentially sold out on the British public who really wanted to be able to send an important message to him. Tell us about this girl. How did this article come to be?
I don't live far from Aldershot. So it wasn't hard because local community can sniff out who it was, and I did. I contacted her parents and I gained their trust because I thought it's so important because we all hear the views of the Palestine marches, and these girls, anybody's getting prosecuted, the young boy, somebody got 8 years sentence for doing something. The sentence has been so unreal. I wanted to have a chance to give a point of view of somebody that was arrested to see what the truth is about this person, because she was like, chav family, bad girl, and all those bits. But I wanted to go a bit deeper to see what she was really like. And where not far from where I'm sitting now is where I interviewed her and I met her. And she was everything other than what she'd been portrayed. She was just a 13 normal girl. When I was speaking to her, she was playing, on TikTok on her phone, and she was quite shy, quite scary. So she wasn't right wing. She was just somebody. Right, if I can tell you what happened to her story, it might help. She lived about 5-10 minutes from where, and they weren't riots. There were demonstrations because the hotel called Potter's Hotel in Aldershot had been taken over by the illegal immigrants, and the word illegal is important because that's what they are. And people of Aldershot, obviously the home of the military for years and years, although it's now been completed, have soldiers living in doorways who can't even get temporary homing. So people of Aldershot obviously are fueled by the fact is you've got a load of illegal immigrants moved into a hotel. You've got a high already waiting list for houses in that area. And just down the road in Farnborough, 50 houses got taken over by the Home Office to the placement of more illegal immigrants. So there is a tension in that area. So a peaceful protest was outside Potter's Hotel. And although it did get bad, there was some bins set on fire, but nothing really to a great degree. There's a bit of shouting and whatever. And then this girl, her parents went home and she was left in charge of a school teacher. So a school teacher was there, and she was kind of edged on by her friends and everybody else. And she ran down there like a 13-year-old would and kicked the door. There was 6 seconds of body cam that identified her. And from then onwards, the story even took the police, I think how it started is the parents said, look, take the picture down. She's a 13-year-old girl. The police said to the parents, bring her in. We want to arrest her. So if they hadn't have called the police to say, take the picture down, she'd never got arrested. She went in, got interviewed, and the duty solicitor said to you, there's no way you're going to get prosecuted. This is just, you won't hear from us again. But within, I think, a few days, the CPS got in contact and said, yeah, no, you're going to trial. So this is all, obviously, Keir Starmer in charge of the CPS.
100%. Yeah. 100%. I should just say to you, this will interest you, is this week I've actually done a long form interview with Dr. Simon Elmer, who talks extensively about the Great Replacement. He's actually done a series of articles. And I started off by saying to him, let's talk about the Great Replacement theory. And he was like, I've got to correct you. It's not a theory, it's a policy. And that's the thing. And that's kind of what you're talking about here. And the thing is, I think we are all sick and tired of being deemed far right and racist for raising legitimate questions about the sheer volume of people who are coming into the country.
Oh, without a doubt. And that's what this is all about. But this particular girl wasn't even involved in that. She didn't really know what was going on. So her story was that she's just a bit hijinks. And from that, she's now gone to court, got sentenced. And listen to what the police said in court, or the judge said. The police were a fear of her. They were a fear of a 13-year-old girl. Great, well done, police. You're scared of a 13-year-old girl. That was a statement made in court. And they said if she'd been 18, she'd done a long sentence for kicking a door. Kicking a bloody door. I mean, so we had the opportunity, and big up the Express for putting it out there, because they can be deemed to be right-wing or far-right. I'm neither. I'm just telling the story, what I see the truth. But, you know, even me as a journalist, you get scared about being shut down. Even this interview, so you don't know what's going to happen nowadays.
I know. Again, going back to the Simon Elmer interview, we actually started. I'm going to play exactly that clip where we talk about the environment in which we're even having this conversation, because Starmer has still got his DPP head on. Everything is very punishing towards anybody who wants to raise questions about immigration. And as anybody around here knows, I've always been very pro-immigration, but I'm not pro multiple undocumented people entering the country. That there's something really wrong with that. And actually, what I've discovered from Simon Elmer is we actually have far too much immigration at this stage, because the rate we're going to need to build a city the size of Glasgow every year in order to be able to accommodate it. So there is a problem, isn't there?
Oh, a massive problem, because they're actually shutting it. It's like living in China. I've been to China, Russia, and everywhere else. I'll have more freedom of speech there than I've got here. So putting that article out, I mean, it's quite scary. You know, unless you toe the party line or the view of the government at the time, you will be shut down. You worry about your bank accounts, you worry about anything now. The fear of that is unbelievable. You mean that article could deem me as being racist, and I'm not. You've only got to look at my history.
Right.
But I have a fear of illegal immigration. That's factual.
And that is absolutely fine and legitimate. And you shouldn't be shouted down for that either. And I'm actually really sick and tired of immediate calls of, oh, you must be far right, you must be racist. I actually think that's distracting from what we need to be dealing with here. And what we need to be dealing with here is why are so many people entering the country and essentially replacing us? What is going on here? And we need to know about it. So this poor girl, I read the article, very well done article, and she sounds absolutely terrified. So she pleaded guilty to violent disorder for the kicking of this door. She was sentenced at Basingstoke Magistrates Court to a 12-month referral order on September the 30th. 3 months was added to the order due to what was deemed the racially aggravated nature of the offence. Doesn't it make you want to spit?
Well, it does. And they, you know, since she's come out, she's got now on an advanced DBS check, that'll be up for life, 100 years, that hold on her record. I mean, unbelievable sentencing. It should have been just a little slap around the head and told to go home. So now she's now punished. She self-harms as well, this poor girl. She broke down in tears. And she had to explain and go, oh, she's the same old thing. She's got Albanian friends. But the reason she says things like this is she has to defend herself. She has. And anyway, those people down at that demonstration have every right to be at those demonstrations as well. They had a view, they had a point of view. And what hasn't been mentioned is the reaction from the illegal immigrants inside that hotel, the immigrants. Because they always describe it as a peaceful response, but it wasn't. It was banging on the window, chanting, screaming back at the people outside. So it wasn't just one way. Never gets reported.
Absolute madness. some of the details from her family, really, because it's there, but for the grace of God go I in many respects, right? Anybody who's raised children, they can get caught up in stuff like this very easily, right? And the stepdad, I found this shocking, this quote. The stepdad said he was shocked at the apparent change of attitude when the police came to the family home. He claims they said the decision to bring the more severe charges was made by people, quote, way above their pay grade. This is a directorate from the top, isn't it?
Yeah, this has come from government. This is government change, because obviously it's that message is to hold you up. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen after October and the demonstration in London. That's going to be an interesting thing. There'll be a load of arrests that day too, because there's a massive demonstration. I don't know. I feel disillusioned. I mean, I was kind of happy I didn't look at race issues or anything, or immigration or anything until probably the last 3 or 4 years. I mean, I happily went around the world doing what I did, and now I've become not an activist, but it's driven me that way.
I think journalism can veer in that direction, Andrew, because I think as a journalist, once you have researched a story, there comes a point when you have to take some action, right? Otherwise, you're just part of the gloop that keeps going round and round and round. So I think that activism sometimes is an inevitable consequence of dealing with the subject matter we are. And you have been around the world. So for you to deal with this story and find it as abhorrent as you have is in itself a sort of statement about where we are. So you have been to Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Chechnya, Ukraine, North Korea, for goodness sake. You've been to, as you described, the lawless tribal territories of Pakistan, right? And you produced the book Trip Hazard. Tell people about it.
Do you know what? I wish I probably left another month, and with all this going on, it could have been, I could have written it now. I could maybe have a second book. Yeah, it just describes what a foolish man can do. And not only that, we all have the power to be journalists. I mean, I never started out to be a journalist, and I don't describe myself as one now, everybody else. And I've made a film.
Do you not? With all your experience, I know people who rock up, just open a little blog, and then suddenly they're journalists. But you are legitimately somebody who's been out there reporting, for goodness sake. I see you as a journalist, peer to peer, I do.
I think, experience it's a bit like the Gaza situation. I've been there. I've been to the West Bank. I know the area. I think the proudest thing I've done, which actually isn't in the book, is the interview of Klitschko just recently, because for just a normal guy like myself to actually get there, sit in an office with him, and I call that the forgotten war now. I don't think people understand the severity of Ukraine. And speaking to him, and I think he believes that, losing 250 troops a day on the front line, they're going to run out of people before their weapons. And that's how severe it was. And I think, although I wish that was in the book, being in a hotel room, being woke up by alarms to tell you to get to the shelters, ignoring it, and waking up to devastation the next morning from your hotel tells you how real the war in Ukraine really is. And just loads of things. I rescued a bear in Ukraine during the war, a circus bear. I know you can't to the screen. I wanted a reason not just to be a voyeurist of the war. I wanted a reason to go in there and do something good. So I took as soon as the war started, I wanted a reason to report back on it. And I knew somebody was rescuing a circus bear that had been mistreated. I'm not an animal lover. I just kind of gave me
just an animal protector, apparently.
Well, weren't very good with the animal, because I hate bears. I bloody hate bears now. Apart from almost coming back to life after we injected it, didn't help. And then my back of the van, we didn't really work it out very well, because put my holder in the back of the van, it was swimming around in bear urine. So that was one of the first reads. So the book has all different, the Shamima Begum stuff, I think we did before, didn't we?
That is exactly right. That's when you came on and talked to me before, because you also switched with Shamima, if I remember correctly. Absolutely. That's right. You went from originally seeing her very much as a victim to then getting to know her a bit more and looking at the story more closely, and you saying, actually, no, she's not. Have I got that right?
You have, exactly. She's the good thing about being a normal guy and not an Oxbridge journalist, and you can go and talk to people. You form your own opinion. It's not public opinion, it's your opinion, my opinion. So my opinion wasn't based on anybody influencing me. It was actually meeting her. I met her on 7, 8 occasions, and each time I met her, a kind of her personality broke to pieces. It broke a little bit more off of it. And by the end of meeting her, I couldn't stand her. But she hasn't gone away from me. I'm still getting messages from the camp. And another thing, that's another story if you want to know something else about the camp. I had this message, it was clearly her. Her life's fallen apart and her tent's fallen apart too. So I had this so-called alias contact me from the prison camp, going back only about 6-7 weeks ago, asking me for money. And I'm not going to give them money, they're terrorists. So I had this message and I played her along because I thought it might be more of a story. She said, I'll sell you information about Shamima Begum. It was Shamima, because I worked out of Texas and the messaging. Wow. She said, I'll sell you, but you're going to have to pay me some money. I want $300. This was in the camp. And I thought, well, I'll keep her going, see if she gives me information. She gave me information. She gave me this chap that lived in Lebanon, a bank account and address. So I had the details of this guy in Lebanon, and we all know what's going on with Hezbollah at the moment. So I contacted our intelligence services. So I followed the procedure. I rang the online number and I got an answer phone. So I sent a message on the answer phone. So I've got this guy, he lives in Lebanon, he's got his bank details, his home address, and he's giving money to potential ISIS. So this guy's obviously an extremist. So they did nothing. They didn't contact me back. So then I wrote a newspaper story about it saying MI5, MI6 have ignored me. So we got that in the paper and still nothing. I've still not heard from them. And this guy still contacts me again since about getting money. So then I went to Jeremy Hunt. Obviously I found out why his name rhymes with Hunt. But and then he said to me, speak to your local, which I live in Surrey, police commissioner. That was his idea. He said, because they might be able to help you. I'm going, do you really read the email or do you really have to take a response? So our country is in a real worrying place at the moment, even our intelligence services.
Absolutely. This gentleman, for people who are just joining late, is Andrew Drury. And you're absolutely right, Drumstick. This is gonzo journalism. This is proper journalism. This is the kind of stuff that I love, where, I mean, Andrew essentially becomes part of the story. He's not just some sort of inactive bystander observing it all. You very much become part of it, Andrew. And it's wonderful. This is to me is true journalism, because you know what it's about. And the thing is, what I also love, Andrew, is you come from a background which wasn't overly privileged. You didn't get to go to university. You left school at 16, I think, probably like me, not many qualifications.
No,
and
hardly.
You pulled yourself up by your bootstraps, right? That's what we always did, right?
Exactly. We never had that. There was no chance I was going to ever go to university. My mum and dad needed the money for me to go to work and bring some money in. It's real life. And that's helped me. I mean, I've managed to get myself a film just released on Paramount Plus about what I've done and bits and pieces. I'm not bragging. It's just, if you want to do something and you're interested, you can do it. But you have to do it. It's harder now because there's so many restrictions on everything.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I've got you. Right. Okay. Yes, absolutely. Helen says, love this guy. Got you. Everybody, this is Andrew Drury. Thank you for joining us this morning, Andrew. Yeah. And hopefully the weather will improve, but keep on at it. Good on you. And your top story of a 13-year-old honestly being convicted, I think, is an absolute deplorable statement about where the UK is right now. And thank you for bringing it to us. We very much appreciate that. Andrew is a truth journalist. Yeah, sorry?
Can I have a third time? I've done two.
Absolutely. Yeah. Carol said Andrew is a truth journalist, the type the establishment are trying to silence and block truth from. Absolutely. We'll see him for a third time shortly. Take good care of yourself, Andrew. Bless you. Absolutely brilliant. Yes. And yes, he is a truth journalist. And I love that. I do. Humphrey has never heard of him. Valerie is not sure about Andrew. And a charming gentleman, says Cavan. I see. So some mixed views going on there. Well, that's absolutely fine. Before we bring in our next guest, which is such a vital, important story about the targeting of a community of people, I want to bring you a video that one of our mods, lovely Zoe, sent me. Right. Can everybody see this? What are we seeing? Are you ready? Everybody see that? It was very quick. You ready? Did you see that? Is that an orb? Greg apologizes for his tardiness and says, I was just fitting my mother's new Virgin Media box, so I do have a note from my mother on this occasion. Fine, absolutely fine. No, not a messy house, synchronized soul, but I think saw that just 1 hour ago. Weird, said Randy. Orb, says Carol. Yes, an orb, says Kat. Frankie says it's an orb. Oh, yes. And yes, it's an orb. Yes, it's an orb. Zoe, you have many videos of the orbs in your flat. Come live in my house. Wasn't that my great great grandma? We are called Scott. Don't know what that means. I've missed that. I see orbs, says Frank. Should we see it one more time before we bring in our next guest? Let's go. There we go. Look at that. That, to me, that's as clear can possibly be. But who am I to say anything? And that cannot be Susan Wojcicki, former CEO of YouTube, because she died. Yes, she did. Right, bit of dust, says Michael. An energy blob, says me. So there you go. It's Christine from upstairs visiting you. I'm going to bring in my next guest. Really important story here. Good morning to you. How are you, Jasveer?
Good morning, Sonia. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, everybody. This is Jasveer Singh. He's from the Sikh Press Association. Now, Jasveer, I've talked before about the situation to a degree that you and I are about to discuss, and that is the situations that Sikhs worldwide are not only facing oppression, but very serious political targeting. And probably one of the most famous Sikhs who has been subject to this is Jasveer Singh Johal, whose story I've covered several times, including with his relatives. You are here to talk about something very similar. But before we proceed, could you tell my viewers who may not be familiar with the story of Jasveer Singh Johal, could you give us a brief overview?
Of course I could.
Thank you.
In 2017, a young man just like myself in his early 30s, born and raised in Scotland, Punjabi Sikh, just like myself as well, born to immigrant parents who'd moved to Scotland. He went out to Punjab in India to get married. He got married, had a fantastic occasion there with friends and family celebrating. And just a couple of days after his wedding, he's out shopping with his wife, as per standard, as you can imagine. And suddenly, a gang of ununiformed police officers, so-called police officers, perhaps they weren't even police officers, they put a bag over his head and bundled him into a van, and they drove him off. And he was, as far as his family was aware, disappeared for at least a couple of days until they suddenly got a phone call saying that he was actually with the police. He'd been with the police that whole time. They thought he'd been kidnapped. They were waiting for ransoms to come forward. The police said that they had arrested him based on alleged terror charges because he was a so-called Sikh terrorist. Now, within the Sikh community, Jasveer Singh Johal, just to summarize and finish this story, he was known as a respected blogger who was blogging about the Sikh genocide, which was carried out by the Indian state in the 80s through the 90s, and some say it continues to this day. And he was also documenting intricate detail about those who were targeted during that genocide as well. So he was known for that kind of work. He went out to India to get married. He ends up being what we believe is kidnapped and with terror charges left dangling over his head 7 years later without a charge, without a conviction.
And what has the UK government done to assist this?
So, in the words of his brother, just paraphrasing, who is a lawyer himself and somebody who's taken, a great deal of responsibility for the situation, not much, not enough. He is being overlooked for trade deals. This is something that even his local MP, his previous local MP, Martin Doherty-Hughes, said he's being sacrificed at the altar of trade when it comes to Britain and India's relations instead of a focus on human rights. And again, this is a person who was born and raised in Scotland. He has a British passport, just like probably most of your viewers and yourself and myself too. This is a very concerning situation for all Sikhs.
Absolutely, he's as British as me, but the thing is that for those of us outside, we didn't realize this is necessarily a regular thing, but this has been going on for a long time. The targeting of Sikhs it's a worldwide scandal, actually, that very little is being done about it, right?
It is a massive international scandal, and actually last year was a groundbreaking year for the Sikh community because we saw the exposure of what has been termed now transnational repression by the Indian government, specifically targeting the Sikh community. Currently in Canada and in America, the USA, there are Indian state, I guess you would call them terrorists, assassins, if you will, are arrested, they're imprisoned, and they're facing trials which are currently in process and ongoing for attempting to kill, or in fact in Canada, actually kill Sikh activists and Sikh leaders. And this is because Sikh activists, despite the Sikh community being 1 or 2% of the community of India, we are a very influential, very powerful community that has pushed movements like the famous farmers' protest movement in 2020 to 2021, that has pushed back against what we would classify as fascism from the Indian government. And that continues in the diaspora, in the UK, of course, in Australia, Germany, wherever we are, that continues. And that places a thorn in the side of relations between India and said country, which in this case is the UK. And just one last thing about this, there's been many other political prisoners. There's been dozens of political prisoners just in the last 20 or so years, people who have spent 10, 20, 30 years in prison based on spurious charges. Sometimes they're not even convicted of a crime, but like Jagtar, who spent 7 years without being convicted of a crime in India, in a prison, this is what they do to us.
Got you. So, but you're actually also here to comment on a recent conviction of somebody I've talked to over a period of time, and that is Sikh Youth UK. Tell us what's going on there. Why all the media coverage in UK and India?
So it was a big story. I'm sure a lot of your viewers saw a story about a charity, so-called charitable organization called Sikh Youth UK. They were never a registered charity, but two of their members, one of whom who was on your show, Kuldeep Singh, aka Deepa Singh, a very well-known community activist globally around the world for the Sikh community, not just in the UK, very well-known figure. He has faced a guilty conviction of breaches of the Charities Commission's rules when an organization he was running was not even a charity. And that's a confusing situation.
Well, that doesn't even make sense. Journalistically, that does not make sense. So he has been convicted of something where, according that he's fallen foul of the Charity Commission, but even though it's not a charity, because it's actually the community coming together and donating, isn't it? That's what you've been dealing with.
Literally. And this kind of thing, let's remember, happens all the time. If you go to local sports clubs, if you go to maybe like churches, garage sales, there'll be fundraisers happening for all types of things by people who aren't registered to be running charities. But on this occasion, and it's only happened a very few times, I encourage people to actually look into how many different organizations are interrogated this way by the charity based on Charities Commission rules without even being a charity. It's very interesting what you'll find because they all fit a certain type. And that type is what Sikh Youth UK were doing. They were community organizers, as well as being groups that organize like, football tournaments and just things of a very kind of basic nature to help the community, helping people coming off drugs and so forth. They've got videos by former users just praising them for the support they gave. But as well as that, they were organizing the community, that when we were protesting about things like the transnational repression that I just talked about the situation specifically about Jagtar Singh Johal, that's when Sikh Youth UK started to get on the radar of authorities because they're organizing the Sikh community to be louder, to be more, if you will, confrontational about situations we are facing, such as the situation of Jagtar Singh Johal, and specifically to that. And the last thing I'll say about that link is Jagtar Singh Johal's name was even included on court documents.
I was going to ask you about this. Why?
Why is very simple, because Jagtar Singh Johal was the political prisoner who India had detained now for 7 years without being convicted of a crime. He was also on the radar of UK authorities, it seems clear, to press him with similar charges as to what Deepa Singh, the Sikh Youth UK team, have faced. And again, from our perspective, it's a case of, well, the only pattern that fits around these people is that they are activists. They're the ones that are calling out the relations between the UK and India for trade, when India is a massive human rights breacher. It is treating people with just, the only way you can describe it is fascism, silencing journalists, people being killed, using rape as a weapon of tool for a weapon against people, all different types of things that the Indian state is guilty of, all different types of things that the Sikh community is vocal about challenging, and even to the extent where there's the Khalistan movement, which calls for our own freedom, having a free homeland within India. Just remember, India is a nation of 1 billion people. It's a massive country. Winston Churchill famously said, India is as much a country as the equator, because it is such a different range of people. But nevertheless, it's been left in this state where it's under one rule. We would say largely upper caste Hindu rule, because it's based on the hierarchy of the caste system within India. That's how the country is run. And groups that don't fit into that hierarchy, like the Sikhs, we're constantly challenging that hierarchy, and therefore we are a problem to the Indian system.
So that is curious, isn't it, in itself? So how long did this investigation go on for? Because it seems to have just gone on forever. I'm
glad you asked, because there's so much I could say about this. Now, the important thing for people to remember is a very basic timeline. 2017 November, Jagtar Singh Johal becomes a political prisoner in India. That's after his wedding. He gets taken away, arrested, if you will, and he ends up in an Indian prison. For the rest of that year, Sikh Youth UK are extremely vocal about his situation. There's protests outside Downing Street, at least 2 or 3, all around the country. There's material being promoted, which explains the situation, explains how trade deals, again, the UK is prioritizing instead of Sikh lives. Now, a year later, the raids happen on 5 Sikh activists in 2018, September. Indian media has intricate information about these raids within hours of them happening. Not UK media. These raids have happened in the UK, but Indian media are naming people who are raided. They're putting their addresses out there. They're giving information about what the raids are linked with, and they're quoting authorities in India itself saying those raids were conducted because of diplomatic pressure. This is the exact term used in Indian media. The articles are still out there. They're saying the raids were conducted because of diplomatic pressure. So this has been going on since 2018. It only went to trial, last month, and so it's been dangling over the head for 6 odd years.
Bad. So this diplomatic pressure, this is political interference you're talking about, isn't it?
Undoubtedly, there's no other way to put it. This foreign interference extending from the Indian lobby, the Hindu extremist regime, is being investigated, as I said, in Canada very closely. In Australia, they have admitted to having this is the own words of Australian authorities, a nest of Indian spies that are immersed in the country, doing things like targeting the Sikh community. In Germany, there have been 3 different arrests of Indian state spies, specifically targeting the community, since 2016. So what do we think is going on in the UK? In the UK, we're turning a blind eye to it. While Joe Biden even spoke on it, Justin Trudeau spoke on it, Rishi Sunak stayed very silent, and Keir Starmer seems to be no different right now. But again, as you said, Sonia, this is very clear interference in the sovereign affairs of the UK.
Let me read you some comments. Sean Whitfield said, my God, our government is disgusting. I feel so sorry for this man. Why does our government always disgrace us? I've worked with Sikhs. I've always found them very honest and honourable. So sad. I mean, I must say I'm not religious in any way at all, and I try not to be biased in any way either. But I have to say, I've always found any of the Sikhs that I've had any involvement with a very kind of, it's about peace, actually, like true peace, a spiritual kind of peace. And that has been my experience. And my experience has been overwhelmingly positive. So why the targeting?
So as I said earlier, there's a very deep philosophical reason as to a very innate conflict between the Sikh philosophy of life and the way the Indian society is structured. It's based on, a lot of people are aware, like a caste system, where if you're born in a certain position, you can't change from it. And the Sikh philosophy teaches that's just nonsense. And we don't believe in it. We believe in fact, destroying it. We believe in overcoming these hurdles. And anyone, doesn't matter what background or what kind of status you're born into, you can be elevated to the status of a king. And this is something that we don't just like preach in some sort of like mystical way. No, we actually challenge tyranny and oppression. That's part of our faith. A faith practice is to challenge tyranny. So this is the kind of thing that we're constantly standing up to the Indian state and being a thorn in their side as they're conducting, as I said, fascism across the country. And the same goes for authorities in the UK and India. And now specifically within that, there is the Free Homeland movement of Khalistan. Khalistan, again, is a threat to the stability of India because the Punjab is known as the breadbasket of India, but it is also the motherland of the Sikh faith and where most of the Sikh community lives. And within that, there's a lot of support for Khalistan. Now, they will completely deny this, but within the diaspora, there's been a mock referendum going on, and hundreds of thousands of people in all diaspora hotspots in the USA, UK, Australia, they're coming out and they're showing support for this referendum for a free Sikh homeland. So these are the types of things that are going on that are making the Indian government think we don't want these people riling up our voters, riling up our community and exposing our human rights abuses. We want to silence them. And in India, the final thing I'll say about the way they run their country, in a country of 1 billion people, it does not matter to kill 10,000 at a time. This is the way the Indian government has always conducted its business since it was founded in 1947. Again, in a country of 1 billion people, what is it for them to kill a few thousand here and there every now and again? And that's what they've been doing to the Sikh community. And that's why we have been very vocal about this issue and we challenge them everywhere we can.
And so you should. And while it's not necessarily something that we hear about regularly, because we simply don't, if our government is involved, our police, our judiciary, then it is our business and we need to do something about it. When is the sentencing of Sikh Youth UK? Is that this month?
I believe it's the first week of November. I think the date changed recently, so I would just double check that the sentencing is coming up. And again, I want to just emphasize exactly what you said. The UK government is very readily involved, even from way back in 1984. You can read documents from declassified.com, .co.uk, which explain the UK's role in the very beginning of the Sikh genocide in 1984, which is the 40 years anniversary of this year, which we are marking across the world. And West Midlands police were found to be leaking that information about the raids because it could only have come from them. So in 2018, when Indian media are reporting about raids in the UK, giving out addresses of British-born citizens and calling them so-called Sikh terrorists, none of them charged with any crime, by the way, but their names are broadcasted all over Indian media calling them terrorists. That information could only have come from UK authorities.
Well, the concerning thing, of course, is they're going to be far more punishing on this sentencing than they are with people like Hugh Edwards or, actual people who are abusers. So it's quite shocking. So we're very keen to keep an eye on this because I hate any form of injustice. And I realise there are injustices taking place here. Is there anything else you'd like us to know before you leave us this morning?
If people go out and read about this situation, they will be reading largely from places that miss out all of the context that I've been talking about. That the raids that happened in 2018, they were conducted because of diplomatic pressure, according to India, which targeted with the individual who ended up being convicted guilty this last month. So I would ask people to actually do a bit more research on this and understand that this is a deeper issue of transnational repression, of governments collaborating in their fascism, if you will, to silence influential voices who are organizing at a grassroots level.
Got you. Absolutely got you. Good Ship Lollipop said, I've always pronounced it Sikh, not sick. Me too. And learn something new today, says Good Ship Lollipop. Indeed. Well, seek and you will find, said Randy. Whichever way it is, as long as it's positive and supportive and prepared to untackle this long injustice, then I support it. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Jasveer. We truly appreciate it. Take good care of yourself and anything we can do, you just let me know, okay?
Thank you so much, Sonia. Thank you for your time. Take care.
Take care. Thank you. Bye. Awful situation. Awful situation. What have we got going on here in the comments? What's going on? I'm late arriving today, but I'm here now. Birdie, Big Bird. Hooray for Wake Up with Sonia Poulton. Yes. And can I just say that if people are actually legitimately trolling in the comments, you will be removed. having a comment, absolutely fine. Repeating it and repeating it and repeating it is trolling. It's unnecessary. Right. And just because you don't necessarily relate to what Jasveer has just been talking about, it doesn't make it any less relevant. That's the important thing. Right, let me see. What do I want to cover before I bring in my next guest? Oh, this is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Anybody know Dr. Malcolm Kendrick? Now, I interviewed Malcolm a heap of times during C19. Well, he and Dr. Zoe Harcombe, they have just won rather substantial damages and costs from the Mail on Sunday. This was on the 3rd of March 2019. The Mail on Sunday published articles which were found in the High Court at trial to be defamatory, to be libelous at law. And as a consequence, the Mail on Sunday, somewhat 5 years later, have been forced to apologise to both Zoe and Malcolm. Let me just give you some of the details here. At trial, the court held that our articles, this is the Mail on Sunday's apology, had accused Dr. Harcombe and Dr. Kendrick of knowingly making false statements about statins, and that a very large number of people ceased to take statin medication and were exposed to serious risk of heart attack or stroke on a scale worse than the MMR vaccine scandal as a result of those false statements. The articles also allege that there were strong grounds to suspect Dr. Harcombe and Dr. Kendrick of making these statements motivated by the hope that they would benefit materially, and included quotes from the then Health Secretary Matt Hancock, which suggested that their statements were pernicious lies. The Mail on Sunday has had to eat big humble pie. We accept the findings of the court that the inclusion of the Hancock quote created a misleading impression of what we said. We also accept that these allegations are untrue and ought not to have been published. We are happy to set the record straight and apologise to Dr. Harcombe and Dr. Kendrick for the distress caused. We will not repeat the allegations and have agreed to pay substantial damages and costs. Well done, Drs. Harcombe and Dr. Kendrick. But that's 5 years on. It's 5 years on. Malcolm was literally one of my go-to doctors during C19. He didn't puff himself up like some other fame-hungry doctors out there, mentioning no names, but he just got on with the business of letting people know something was very wrong with the official narrative, and he was absolutely brilliant at it. And another person who did something very similar to Malcolm, without a great deal of praise, is in front of the GMC today, and that is Dr. David Cartland. Dr. David Cartland, one of the true GPs who fought against the C19 narrative, is now facing very serious GMC disciplinary. He's been going through hell with the GMC and a pack of vicious, defaming online trolls who support the C19 measures. And I have a great deal of time for Dr. David Cartland, interviewed him a ton of times, and it's awful. He shared his experience as a vaccine-injured doctor, and it's absolutely awful what they've put him through. I've advised him repeatedly to either ignore them or stay offline. But, when you're not necessarily experienced in dealing with trolls, your instant reaction, obviously, is to defend yourself, to fight back. But that's what they love, and they end up tying you in loops. I used to do that a long, long time ago, but not anymore. Not anymore. But I wish him lots of luck. I really do, because the GMC, unfortunately, is not representing the patient anymore. It is very much representing big pharmaceutical industry. And they even put out, I think it was a tweet where they were saying even questioning the GMC is now problematic legally. Questioning everything is problematic legally, questioning whether there is a two-tier police policy, questioning whether the GMC are complicit in some way in the lies. All of these things, they're putting threats on us, and they put threats on us because they want to create a chilling effect so that we just shut up and go away. But many of us are not going to. No, we're not going to. Mixed feelings about the death of Alex Salmond. Very mixed feelings, actually. Interesting. Alex Salmond, of course, he was former First Minister of Scotland. He died at a conference in Macedonia. I was listening to the details of it from an eyewitness who said that somebody was trying to get some ketchup. They were at a table. Alex kind of fell back in his chair, and the man ran out to try and get help, and he came back in. They'd pushed all the tables aside, and Alex was on the floor, and they were trying to give him CPR, but he died of a heart attack. And it is very mixed feelings for many, many people. And what is interesting, of course, is all across the political arena, people have come out with tributes, including the woman who stabbed him in the back, Nicola Sturgeon. He pretty much raised Nicola Sturgeon, but there was huge fallout with them. And between the pair of them, really, they were the two heavyweights of Scottish independence movement. And Alex formed his own breakaway party, the Alba Party, after he had led the SNP. And the spat played out in such a public way. Obviously, he was charged and tried with sexual misconduct allegations. He was cleared of any criminality by a jury in Edinburgh in 2020. But he had said in recent times, actually, that this was unfinished business. He said there was a conspiracy which had attempted to bring him down. Ultimately, he believed that the truth would air one day. And now it probably won't, unless he's left behind tapes. Who knows? Who knows? But the reason that I say mixed feelings is because he failed the whole Holly Gregg situation. Now, I don't know if you are familiar with the Holly Gregg situation, but Holly Gregg is a disabled young woman, and she was a child at the time. And there were very serious accusations of child abuse, which involved her family, involved Freemasons, and involved people high up in the Scottish establishment. And wonderful Robert Greene, who is no longer with us, led the campaign for awareness and the truth to do with Holly Gregg. And it's important to note that they always denied what Holly Gregg was saying, and yet they gave her a payoff to silence her and send her and her family, her mum, away, rather, and Robert Greene. But Robert Greene was absolutely determined to raise awareness about it, and he'd got in touch with Alex Salmond. But the real problem was the Lord Advocate at the time, and Alex Salmond completely backed her, and Robert Greene ended up being in prison for distributing flyers. And so that's why I say there are a great deal of many mixed feelings. I know he was prepared to stand up against the mad gender lobby, but that for me isn't enough, given his role in sort of ensuring that the Holly Gregg story didn't come out. And I had a problem with that. I did. What are you thinking and saying out there, lovely people? What's this? Tara, Sonia, why do you think we can't now lock up doctors on the GMC website? I always check new doctors out on there, but no longer allowed. I have my suspicions as to why. What, Tara? They're not on there. Yes. So there are people in the comments. Shug said maybe now he'll explain his actions to the excellent Robert Greene. Ooh, Holly Gregg story is utterly horrific, says Lulu. Kat is also familiar with Robert Greene. Tony says, rest in peace, Robert Greene, who I've shaken hands with several times, a beautiful man. He is in my documentary, Paedophiles in Parliament. And Robert Greene actually talks about the whole Edward Heath story. The Edward Heath story is really awful. If you've not heard it, I'll say it briefly. But basically, Edward Heath, former prime minister, extensively accused of abusing and having children finished off. I think that's as far as I can say, given that it's a YouTube live stream. But one of the things that is known about Edward Heath that people have talked about is that Edward Heath used to wear these kind of gloves, like almost an extension of his hand, because he couldn't bear to touch the children with his own hands. So he had these kind of gloves with, if I remember correctly, like sticky outy nails kind of thing. Really weird stuff. And the judiciary, Aquaboy says, the judiciary have a massive paedophile ring in Scotland. They are corrupt, and police themselves, they are evil. Shug, I didn't know that, really. I guess that's why you moved to London. He's apparently followed all over Scotland with a banner saying, Salmond, you fat protector. Interesting. Well, I think that's an interesting comment. All this fear about government arrest for posting comments, and yet I have yet to see any YouTuber or high profile influencer arrested. Well, don't speak too soon, right? Don't speak too soon. But I take your point. That is a good point. Kat C. Robert Greene was put in prison for telling the truth. Like I said, anyone can go to prison for telling the truth. Yes, they can. And anyone can go to prison for being completely innocent as well. So yes, lots of mixed feelings around the whole Alex Salmond thing. I may look at one more story before I bring in my next guest. Let me see if I can find a short one. But yes, let me just see. Awful stuff, isn't it? That Hurricane Milton. I was watching videos last night. I've noted all your requests to bring on Dane Wigington. Absolutely. I've reached out to him. I've interviewed Dane before from Geoengineering Watch. He's brilliant. At least 16 people we know of, I think it's 18 now, have died after Hurricane Milton passed through Florida. Though the total number of deaths could rise, obviously, as rescue workers make their way through floodwaters, debris. More than 2 million homes and businesses are without power, and thousands of people have been rescued from flooded areas. How absolutely miserable. And I saw Tyler Payne, who is the mayor of Treasure Island, which is their local island, bit unfortunate, and saying that emergency service rescues thousands in Florida. Anybody remember that time when Kanye West was doing the live marathon for victims of, remind me people, but he turned around and said, George Bush doesn't care about black people, off the cuff. It was fantastic. It was fantastic. Catherine went to a protest against the jailing of poor Robert. Did you? Hamish is not impressed. Alec was just another career political a-hole. The place is full of them. Indeed. The movie title, Edward Scissorhands, disgusts me. There you go, Shook. You've literally, that is exactly the image, my love. Exactly the image. He had metal hands. Yes, he did. Well, he didn't have metal hands. He had gloves or some kind of apparatus that he put over his hands. Sean says, not good enough Mail on Sunday. This is about Doctors Harcombe and Kendrick. Mainstream media is vile. They should be forced to pay massive compensation. I think, Sean, you'll find they have. I think they've been whipped. I'd like to know exactly what that is exactly. But when they write substantial damages, we're talking probably six figures. We're talking probably six figures, I should imagine. Right. Let me bring in our next guest because she's lovely. And we need some good spiritual, not just spiritual awareness. We just need to be brought up a little bit because it's mad times at the moment, Abby Wynne. What is going on? Why is everybody
It's really great
like
to be
so
here
heavy?
again. Thank you so much for having me on.
Pleasure to have you on.
Monday.
And happy Monday to you. It's a full moon week this week. And we've had quite a time of it recently. We've had eclipse season and there's a full moon in Aries. That's very fiery. So for anybody who's not familiar with Abby, she came on recently with Mark Atwood. She co-wrote this with Mark, Weapons in Mass Protection. In fact, I can give you a little, let me just add it to the screen if I can, if it's still with me. Yes. There you go. Let's just pop it up there. There you go. Let's give it a little plug because it deserves it. Abby is a shamanic psychotherapist, master's degree in science, accredited with the Irish Association of Psychotherapy and Counselling. She's also a Reiki. And what's this? Saicham. Have I pronounced that right? What is that? Master teacher.
It's a form of energy healing that came from the pyramids in Egypt. But I'm no longer accredited, which is a very interesting topic.
That is very interesting. And presumably it's because of the work that you're prepared to do, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's it.
It's awful, isn't it? Poor David Cartland is before the GMC today. If you speak out, the authorities, your regulators will come after you. I think that gives people more credibility, frankly. Anyway, Weapons of Mass Protection, Practical Tools for Spiritual Warfare is a lovely book. Absolutely lovely. I highly recommend it. And I thought Abby was the most perfect person to come on and talk to us this week because people are feeling really kind of heavy energies. Abby, do you feel heavy energies?
Actually, this past week has been incredibly empowering in a spiritual way. So it's all about what you're engaging with and what you're listening to and what you're feeding yourself, feeding through the eyes and the ears as well as through the mouth. But just before you had me on, you were talking there about Hurricane Milton. And Hurricane Milton, before he hit the land, was registered as 5. And there were all the warnings going off that he was actually bigger than 5, that they couldn't measure him. He's that big. So I decided, let's get all the light workers together and let's unwind him with our intention and our power that we have, so that by the time he reaches the land, he'll just be a tropical storm. So I put out a call. All the light workers who know me, come and help me do this. And people landed on the page. Yes, I'm in. And I think on YouTube, it was one of my most popular community posts. And what was really interesting to me is I astrally traveled and did some work and came back and compared notes. And by the time it was the weekend, it had degraded significantly. It really had. And people who were saying yes on my posts were saying, oh, so-and-so is also doing this. Oh, are you following this person over here? They're also doing this. So if you just imagine the grid of light workers around the world lighting up, coming into action, saying, we're not going to have this anymore. Everybody's intention together. So yes, it was, quite severe and people died, but it definitely was not as bad as it could have been. I mean, I think there was something really ominous about that. And I think we all just had gone there and said, no, we're not having this. And it made me think over the weekend, well, if we all thought that way, like if people who don't realize that they're healers, they probably are. If they all thought that way and said, okay, I'm going to pull my energy out of the stuff that I don't want.
Right.
And I'm going to put it into things that I do want. But what was miraculous for me, Sonia, was not only did it work, and yes, there is some devastation, but it's going to happen, but it's definitely not as bad as it could have been. But all of these people activated on their own in different parts of the world, and we've never met each other. And I said to my friend as a joke, could you imagine if we called a meeting of all of these people on Zoom to sit down and make a plan? How are we going to take this hurricane apart? We would never have been able to have done it. Nobody would have stepped up to talk. Everybody would have had their own way, and everybody's way would have been the best way. And so the fact that we didn't talk to each other, but we did it together as a group, for me is a real positive example of the whole unity idea, that we're all coming together as one,
collective,
to protect each other. Yeah.
Now, what's important about this, some people listening will think you've gone absolutely insane, right? And we know that. We know that happens. But here's the thing, though. What you've just described is exactly what is accepted as prayer. So when people are going through hard times, they will often say online, please send a collective prayer for me. So people accept that is possible, right, in a religious framework, but they won't necessarily accept a more spiritual approach is possible. And I do believe in collective energies all coming together. I believe that. And I was once behind this kind of initiative to have kind of collective, not prayer meets, but almost everybody coming together online and seeing what kind of energies, what kind of positive energies we could drum up, because we need to, because it is about where your energy and your attention is, isn't it? That we've got to be so
what
careful.
Is a prayer? I mean, if you think about what is a prayer, what is a prayer? It's a connection to God or a higher source with a request or an intention. And it can be in any language, in any structure, in any format. So we're probably praying all the time without even realizing it. Oh, I hope this goes well. I hope she gets better. I hope this,
Right.
But when you deliberately disconnect, here's the thing. You see, our power is our biggest resource. And the world is designed to hemorrhage of our power, to take, we're bleeding out all the time. Power is going into this, power is going into that. Your doctor tells you a diagnosis and you've given half of your power away to them just because we're trained that way. Or there's the news, the bad news coming. You believe what people say. This is what's changing, Sonia. People are no longer believing what they're told.
We love that, because it's, not a moment too soon, frankly. But the thing is that there's also another side of that, and that is it's creating a lot of confusion, isn't it? And also when people don't know what to believe, that's when you get these doom mongers who come in, because they realize on social media it is the most negative, fearful posts that are making huge amounts of money for the people, right? Since Elon Musk monetized up X, you have these huge anonymous accounts. You have no idea who's running them, and they are putting out horrendous content and making an absolute fortune. They sometimes post online, look, I just made $2,000 this month, right? So they are being incentivized by one of the world's richest men to put this really negative content out. How do we overcome that? Is it just a case of staying off social media?
No, I don't think so, because we met on social media and people are finding good people on social media, and there's lots of goodness there. I think people go through a process when they realize, well, I don't believe all of the authority figures in my life, but I don't have the self-confidence yet to trust myself implicitly to make the best decisions for me. So it's like a wobble. But what happens is you start to grow in trust with yourself once you start to pull back from the world events and go, I can't control those, but I can control what I put in my fridge, what I'm feeding my family. I can control my thoughts. Now, there's a thought. Spiritually speaking, we have not been able to control our own thoughts for years.
No.
So now that we have more power coming back in, we can realize, did you know that bacteria in your stomach can send thoughts to your head to tell you you're craving food so that you continue to feed them? And then when you're connecting in to these addictive, the social media, and you need to check your email and you need to check your Facebook, and you don't need to do any of that, but that's a planted thought. And then when you're around other people, it's all about frequency. If you start thinking of frequency, you're picking up their thoughts and thinking that they're yours. So I think the book I wrote with Mark is a really good way to separate yourself out from everything else, clean up your own act, protect your energy field, protect yourself. If you think of yourself as a house, you wouldn't have everybody traipsing in and out, leaving muddy footprints and helping themselves to everything,
I mean,
so you start with that.
Exactly. You've written a ton of books. A lot of them are about healing, raising your vibration, that whole, like, you definitely deal with energy. That's your thing, isn't it? That's your currency. How is your energy? I mean, it feels lovely to me, but in general, how do you keep yourself up?
I put it first and foremost to look after me, because what happens as a healer, or anybody really who works with people, is if you don't have enough buoyancy, if you don't have enough energy, then you start to resent it when you start giving it away to other people. And then you get burnt out, you get worn down. And so for me, my sensitivities are very high. So I catch things, let's say when they're 2 miles away, and I deal with them before they're in my face. But I think people are just used to having things coming in and sitting with them and not knowing how to deal with them. And so making good boundaries. You talked actually before you introduced me there about some of the astrology that's coming up, and you can interpret astrology from the filter of your experience of life. So if you're expecting things to go into shit, then they will. But if you're expecting things to get better, then they will. Why? Because you're putting your energy into the trajectory of whichever one you're choosing. So you have the choice to be empowered and sovereign, to say, I have some control over my life. I can choose what I do and what I don't do, and who I give my power to or not, or else you just wither and it just gets taken from you. So I think we're in a massive healing process as a collective.
Oh,
Does
sorry,
that make sense?
Yes, I thought you were just going to say something else. I was listening because I find it really interesting. I come from a spiritual background. My mum was a medium. I've talked about this extensively before. None of this is woo-woo to me. I grew up around a seance table. I assumed everybody did until I was 18 and moved to London and discovered, actually, no, that was just me. So the thing is that none of this is alien to me. This is all second nature to me. I absolutely get what you're saying. And I think it's really important for us to do everything we can to keep lifting our vibrations, because as you say, the world is sort of designed to take from us, isn't it? It's almost like in a lack situation where in fact the world is actually really abundant. Now obviously there's going to be awful things that happen, like Gaza, for example, and there's not much I can say about that regarding that, but generally people like us, right, we're not dealing with major situations. And I think it is our responsibility to do everything we can, especially when we're public figures, to keep up our vibrations and not drag people down into the mire. What do you think?
Well, I think education is key. I really do. That people, if you start to imagine, right, that your body is your house, how do you want to live? You know,
Right.
do you want to live in really heavy, cluttered, terrible energies that you've been carrying for years, or do you want to start to clear them out? So this is the work that I do, is to teach people how to look at all the stuff that they've accumulated and say, oh, there's my auntie's pain, and it's making me feel heavy. So I don't
Ooh.
want that anymore. So I'm taking it out and I'm burning it in the trash, you know, and then who am I letting in? And what am I doing with my time? And it's really, once you start to become aware of the choices of how you're spending your energy, you start to see it all through your life. But we're so, you know, you have to look here, and then you have to look there, and then you have to do this and you have to do that. So we were never taught to do that. And I think it's a really natural thing for us to flow into, you know, even the idea of a petrol tank. How full are you with your energy? You know, and when you're next to empty, you have to fill up. Do you know how to fill yourself up? I mean, do the people watching know? What do you do? I mean, people that mostly would just go outside, turn off everything, sit by a tree, sit in the sun, allow themselves to come back to themselves. But I have this really important, powerful tool people can use first thing in the morning and last thing at night. And all you're doing, and I even imagine people sitting on the edge of the bed, and they just say, all the energy, let's say this is at nighttime, all the energy that I lost today, all the energy, wherever it might be, please come back to me now.
Because that often happens, isn't it? Is our energy is scattered here, there, and everywhere.
Yes.
This person is calling us. This person needs this from us. This bill needs addressing. This situation. So it's all over the place, right? So that's a really good way of bringing us back to ourselves. Because how do you unpack something like that, though, Abby? Imagine somebody who is, say, they've reached their 40s and they know they have all this trauma that they've not even begun to properly look at. Where do you even begin with something like that?
That's where I begin.
Right.
Because if you have all of this stuff to do, but you don't have any resources, as in your own life force energy, you don't have the energy to deal with it. This is what I truly believe. I mean, when I met Mark Atwood at first, the most important thing I felt that we could do is a soul retrieval. And
Right.
it's taking the pieces of the soul that you have lost through trauma and pain. You get a fright and you, oh my God, and a piece of you jumps out. And it, you know, and if your life is stable and balanced over time, it does kind of trickle back in. And people might go, oh yeah, I feel more like myself now. But sometimes it doesn't, you know. And so if you're living in this messy house, the soul piece that left doesn't trust that you're going to be able to protect it if something bad happens again. So you clean up your house and you call back your soul. And that's really consistency, continuity. You're asking me how my energy is. This is the work I do before I do any other work. How am I today? And bringing back my soul pieces. And
too many people, and I used to be absolutely somebody who did this, so I'm not insulting anybody else, but too many people are constantly looking outwards at the world, right? Especially like campaigners and activists online. They're like, let me highlight what's going on in the world. But their own home, their own family life is in absolute dire straits, right? Because it's safer, isn't it, to be focusing out there than in here? There's a lot of hard questions that often need to be addressed and answered when you look inwards.
Well, you see, it's a huge distraction, isn't it? And I mean, anybody who owns a car knows that if the petrol tank is empty, you can't go anywhere. So you have all these mountains of things that you need to fix, but you've got no power to do it. So this goes back to the original piece, Sonia, which is we're not allowed to be powerful.
Right.
Because if we have power, we can clean up our homes, we can clean up our act, we can clean up our body, we will be vibrant. And then suddenly what happens? We get divine inspiration. We start to create things. The light workers all around the world connect together on the very same day, at the very same time, to do the very same thing without having contacted each other first. Because humanity and humans are mostly good. And this was just hugely hopeful for me to see it. We all want the same thing. Maybe people just don't know how to do it. So anybody who's feeling overwhelmed right now, just ask for your energy to come back. And one day you wake up and the petrol tank is half full and you go, oh, I feel a lot better. But wait till it's really full. Wait till it's totally full. The things you can do when you have all of your energy are phenomenal. And that's what they've been afraid of.
Exactly. Honestly, here's the thing, Abby. This is where you've just literally thrown me. I like to end the show on a quote. And actually, the quote I'm going to be ending today's show on is exactly about that, about how they only fear us if we become to understand our power, that very famous quote. And that is the reality. And I realized that a very long time ago, because of my background, because a lot of people, what happens is that when they get to adulthood, they have to unpack all these kind of very negative ideas about spirituality before they can even start to delve into their own spirituality and whereas I didn't have those challenges. I'm just like, I'm in there. I understand this. I get this completely. Soul sound.
But Sonia, just going to stop you for a second, because what's happening is there's an uprising of people's awareness that they need to do this. And what are they getting? They're getting all of these summits and all of these specialists and experts and celebrity superstar spiritual people who are telling them, I understand your trauma, and this is how the trauma came about. And here's another kind of trauma, and here's that trauma coming about. So to me, that's like, when a child and you're painting and you keep putting colors in as you're cleaning your paintbrush and the water gets muddier and muddier, we can understand all the traumas. And here they are in the muddy water. What are you going to do with it? They never want to take you out of it.
You're saying there's a lot of charlatans, right?
A lot of them. So I'm going to start training people next year to learn how to do what I do, so we can get more people educated and get more people out there just asking for their power back. If that's all you do, just say in the morning, I want all my power that leaked out during the night, where my cousin and my auntie and my best friend came and hooked in their petrol pump and pumped it out of me while I was sleeping. And I let them, because I thought that they would like me more if I let them do it. But now today I'm going to learn that I don't need to be liked, and I need to be powerful in my life.
That is such an empowering statement. I don't need to be liked, but I need to be powerful in my own life, right? I mean, that is so powerful. Hello, Roy. Yes, we're all doing well. Ready for a new week in Western dystopia. Absolutely. But we're trying to get our spirits all intact and everything. And I think, yes, amen. Exactly, Kat. Exactly that. Changing my negative energy into positive vibes, said the Rec Law. And that's the thing, is we literally do have the power to do that. We do. And what has happened is almost from birth, we have been told that we're basically essentially powerless, and increasingly so over the last few years, where the state has become all powerful, dictating to us. Humphrey says, wish more people were like her. Yeah, what a more pleasant place it would be.
Well, so do I. I wish more people would think this way. Because, and just also another key factor, we've been trained into negative energy and positive energy. It's just energy. So if you stop thinking of things as negative and positive and start thinking of them as low frequency and higher frequency, and then you start to choose, I want higher frequency in my life. I want my energy back. I want to be powerful. It makes a difference there too.
It's a choice, isn't it? I remember Nelson Mandela saying that even when he was locked in Robben Island for 27 years, that how he spent his day was entirely down to him, how he responded to, because we can't necessarily always do anything about the harms people do to us, but it's how we respond to that can make a great deal of difference, isn't it?
Well, there's the old cliche, forgive and forget, means that people don't ever want to forgive because they think they have to forget what happened. And you don't forgive and forget. You forgive, but you remember. You forgive and you release the pain, but you never have to deal with that person again. You don't have to love people just because they're in your family. All these obligations that are there to disempower us.
Yes.
It's if you look at the construction of life, isn't there a research that has been done that says that all babies are geniuses until they go to kindergarten, and then when they go to school, they come out and they've lost all of that genius. Genius is that connection to divine inspiration and source, because they've taken those connections and connected us into things that drain us. So we need to fill up and clean up our houses where we live, the metaphorical house, our energy field. If we just clean that up and empower ourselves, we look at the other person and we want to help them, and then we have the energy to help them.
And I completely oppose the idea that, spirituality is woo-woo. We can't see it. We just have to believe in it. That's not true. You can see it. You can get a visceral reaction when you're having a spiritual experience.
But then if your bacteria is connected to processed food and sugar and crap, you won't get a visceral reaction because it's disconnected from that. So you see, it's everything you're putting in. It's all the choices are connected.
And you cover all of that beautifully
We
in this
do,
book,
yeah.
don't you? What you're putting in your body is so vital. People just don't realize that half the time. Thank you all for joining us late in the chat. I can see somebody from New Zealand. Lovely to have you with us. Absolutely lovely to have you with us. All us watching in New Zealand. Love the show, says Mike. Thank you. We appreciate that, Mike. And thank you. The love starts in you, then you can go and spread it, says Marcus. And it does. Again, the whole kind of petrol analogy, the empty tank thing is really relevant here, because literally, if you are not sorted yourself, you are not in a position to help other people. You're not. And that is the reality. So, but the other thing that I love about this is that it's also about identifying your weaknesses so that you can improve them. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, how do they get in? I'll go back to sleeping at night and leaking your energy out because you feel that your family need you, or it's a weakness is your pattern, the weakness of your inner child who feels that they want to be loved at all costs, so you have to realize, and this is another issue that we're having today, is that adults need to become the adult in their life.
Oof.
And so that's a weakness too, because the temper tantrums when you don't get what you want, the distraction from what's really going on, those are all childlike qualities. And when I studied archetypes all those years ago, I was looking at where is the healthy adult? Where's the healthy, responsible adult archetype? And it's as if they just didn't ever give us that one, because they didn't want us to become that one. So being a healthy adult, you can have fun. Oh, but it's so boring to be healthy. You need the drama in your life. No, you can give yourself the fun. You allow yourself to express yourself. You can take a day off and go running around in the country if that's what you want to do. Our ideas have been so conditioned that we can't be healthy. We can't be vibrant. Even all of the research, what comes up for me as I'm speaking, the fight against cancer. Why are we fighting against cancer?
Yeah, be careful. We're on YouTube.
Putting our energy into vibrant health. I'm putting my energy into a vibrant, healthy body. We don't talk to our body when it's sick and saying, I'm really sorry that you're sick. What can I do to help you? And put that love and energy in. Everybody's giving love to the water and crystallizing it. Oh, look how beautiful it is when it's been loved. And look how horrible it is when you hate the water. But we're doing this to ourselves.
We are.
Up our house.
And you see that in plants. You really see that in plants.
But you see it in bodies. I mean, when you look at the most beautiful, actual beautiful people, that beautiful on the inside, it's because they're not angry at themselves.
Right, exactly.
They're not constantly creating anger and putting it into their body and then wearing it.
Yeah, let me read this. John from Coventry. I've had to really spiritually protect this year as my work has been in a restructure since March and it's incredibly stressful. I'm going camping in the mountains whenever I have the energy to. John, that sounds fantastic. Fantastic. Carol says, go within to find oneself, inner healing from the inside out. Schools took God out of schools for a reason, all agenda. They certainly took spirituality out, if indeed it was ever in, because the school system is designed to stock the factories and not much else. But also, we have to also be aware that when we're on that path, we are then also vulnerable to spiritual attack, aren't we?
Yes, we are. But if we're more aware of the frequencies that we're engaging with, you get higher up and they can't get you. But as you're talking about, projecting everything out to the outside world is a fractal of us, but we have to clean inside first. So all of the activists and everything are ignoring the most important piece of work of all, which is the work of their interior soul, their interior landscape themselves. So if they're uncomfortable with something, then they have to go and kill it, because it's out there and not taking responsibility. It all comes down to that being a sovereign person who is responsible for themselves and looks after themselves. And then together we look after each other and we're much healthier that way. And we can start to build a beautiful world that we know we deserve. Because we do.
then you're not just a number. Nobody is just a number. And I think one of the greatest tricks that the devil played on us is to make people feel as if they're insignificant, as if they don't count. But that simply isn't true. And I know that for fact, right? And that is, once you put your mind to something, it's amazing. I always find that when I make a decision, like I made a decision to do this twice weekly show, I just said at the start of the show, Friday's show, we've had nearly 100,000 views across platforms, Abby. That's come from nowhere. Like literally from nowhere. And that the point being is that I show up here every Monday and Friday, and people know it's regular and they know my intention is good. And we've become this village that are pulling together this child and raising this child. And that's what Wake Up is. And that, so we can make these changes, but people have to stop being observers or passengers in their own life, don't they? They need to be active participants in their own life.
I think all of this happens naturally when your proverbial petrol tank is above half full.
Right. Oh, like a Maslow's hierarchy kind of situation.
I just think that you have the energy to be able to say no to things, because there are consequences to saying no to things. And it's easier sometimes to just go along with it because you don't have the energy to deal with those consequences. Mm-hmm. So if the 100,000 people that watch your show say twice a day, I call my energy back to me. I call my energy back to me. That's all they do is I call my energy. You know, we have these thoughts going on all day. Make that your thought. I'm taking my energy back, because then one day it's like, okay, I've got more energy, you know, and I don't like this. And now I have the energy to change this. And then you change it, and then it opens to the next thing, and it opens to the next thing. And then before you know it, you're cleaning up your own life, you're cleaning up, and then you're able to help other people do it. So I really do believe that that's where it starts.
I agree with you. I've put Amber's comment on the screen because it's so lovely. She speaks such sense. Love this woman. I was feeling incredibly low and disheartened today. This interview has come just at the right time. Thank you, Sonia. And thank you, Amber, for expressing that as well. And because it's important. Markuson said his is constantly overflowing. Is that your energy, Markuson? But that's a lovely comment. Thank you, Amber. We appreciate that. And I appreciate you, Abby, and I appreciate you showing up here today with your wonderful positive vibes. Please check out her books. I'll put links in the description for the lovely Abby Wynne, and there's many. The Raise Your Vibration boot camp book.
Can I just show this one?
Yes, I've got it.
This is my newest book.
That's literally the one I've just said, isn't it? Yes.
And why I want people on here, if they don't know anything about what I'm talking about, but they're interested, I've put these QR codes in the book throughout the whole book that link you to audio files and video files. There's actually 5 hours of me talking videos in this book to teach you how to do this, to support you, to hold you, to educate you, so that all you're doing is bringing your power back and keeping it with you, noticing where it's leaking out. It's a work in process. Oh my goodness, there's a policeman across the road and suddenly I feel disempowered. You have to work on what it is in you that does that, you know. Or you're going to visit your parents and then you're disempowered. You need to work on what it is that does that for you. I've got lots in here. I've got lots on my website, and all you need to do is show up with your enthusiasm and desire to fix this. And the best thing you can do when you're disheartened is to say, I feel disheartened. I want my energy back. Show me what I can do to help myself and to help the world. I really do feel the more buoyant and, you know, vibrant we all become, the less power they have. And, you know, and we point and laugh at them and say, you don't have power over us anymore. That's a ridiculous thing you're telling us to do. I'm choosing to do this over here. You know, if I'm interested in you, I might listen. Otherwise, no. And then they've lost their hold totally.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are our own power. We need to keep remembering that. Abby, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And I love your vibration. And the thing is that what's interesting talking to you, just you and I together, is how much space you allow within the conversation, which I think is beautiful, actually. Again, that's something we don't really do anymore in this world, certainly not in broadcasting. But I love that because you enable people to actually take on board what you've said without rushing into the next point. That's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Create your own energy. We are little. The comments go so quick. I just missed that. I like that. This is lovely. This is lovely. Stop being a power battery for someone else. That's fabulous.
Exactly. Yes.
Wonderful. Love
And
it.
you know what? As well as batteries, there's wires coming off those batteries, and you would be so surprised if you pulled on the battery to see who's at the other end at the wire pulling on you. You know, so in that boot camp book, I do cord cutting, which is cutting those wires off you so that they can't access you, making yourself stronger so that they can't get in. They come knocking at your door and they can't get in, but you know, when all the doors are open, then they can just walk in and take what they want. So
I'm going to let you go, but this has just resonated with me. If you just read this, Abby is showing us all how much we have all been groomed.
yes,
Oh, that's deep.
it's true, isn't it? So true.
Oh, that is so true. Thank you, Craig, for pointing that out. Very much appreciate you being with us this morning, Abby. I will make sure to put a link to certainly your new book and several of your books in the description. Take good care
Well,
of
thank
yourself.
you, Sonia. I'm here anytime, and I really enjoyed this. I hope I've
Thank
helped
you.
some people with this.
You've been absolutely lovely. Exactly the energy I wanted to start this full moon week off with. And you've done everything that I could have asked for and more. Thank you so much, everybody. Abby Wynne.
Thank you.
Take good care of yourself. Isn't she lovely? Absolutely lovely. I feel thoroughly like sorted, kind of like everything is fine now. Let me just take that out. Let me just pull my hair. How are you doing? Call your spirit back. Release the energy that doesn't belong to you. Absolutely, darling people. Sending love or energy to Abby. Mods, could you clip Abby's chat so I can share? Thank you. Hoax, that isn't really something that the mods do, but I'm wondering how we can go about that. Let me have a think about that. Very pleasant lady, says George Benson. 3 clear voices. Frank, what are you talking about? You're scaring me now. What is going on? Right, let us move on. Oh, people, this is great. This has been doing the rounds. I've seen this before. Oh, have I got it here? Yes. I've seen this before. Got to bring it up. So I'm going to do that. Did you see? Oh, let me see if I can do a bigger. Oh, I don't know if you can see it, but basically, whoever did this, you deserve a reward. I'd certainly buy you a drink. But this was placed in front of newspapers in a newsagent. It says, polite notice. Customers are reminded that these newspapers are merely the opinions of a small group of billionaires desperate to influence public opinion and are not 100% factually reflecting reality. Please cross-reference everything you read. And look, the queen of all cover-ups in the corner. I don't know if you can see it, right? The Madeleine McCann story in the top right-hand corner. I absolutely love that. Who did that? Do you love the variety of this show, Jasmine? Thank you very much. I believe in variety because I don't want people to be bored apart from anything else. But I know that there are certain things. Yes, definitely Mark Atwood back on again, Christine. There are certain things that we obviously cover. We cover news and we cover crime and we cover so-called conspiracy theories and some spirituality and some psychology and a little bit of health and that kind of thing. But variety is so vital to me. Absolutely vital. I get bored quickly. I bore myself if I'm not moving on, right? I shared this too. I know a few read that and take it as fact. You're talking, what's this? What's going on? What are we talking about? We're all just trying to tune into a clear station, says Huey. I get that. I get that loud and clear. Anybody seen that Kanye West has been accused of drugging and raping his ex-assistant at a party? And of course, there's been all of the ongoing charges, both civil and criminal, regarding Sean Puffy Combs. Well, of course, Kanye and Puffy have been long-term friends. And the new sexual harassment claim against Kanye West has been made in an updated lawsuit brought by Lauren Pisciota. Pisciota is an influencer and former OnlyFans model. She worked for Kanye between 2021 and 2022 after a career working in the music industry. She sued Kanye earlier this year, alleging that he bombarded her with sexual texts and did something on the phone with her. Something involving pleasuring himself. But in new allegations filed on Friday, Pisciota claims she was roofied when a drink which was poured and served to her by West was laced with an unidentified drug. And this apparently was years before the pair worked together, yet she still went and worked for him. See, it's moments like that that I get a little bit confused. I get a little bit confused about people's intentions. But the lawsuit claims, as plaintiff, which is Pisciota, began to slip into an altered and heavily impaired state, she felt less in control of her body and speech, and that is where the plaintiff's memories of that night escape her. Apparently, Pisciota woke up the next day feeling ill, confused, and shamed that she was not able to recall a single detail of the night following the drink. For years, she thought that nothing had happened that night, only to find, once employed by West, that the rapper hooked up with her. And the lawsuit claims that revelations came when West's ex-wife, Kim Kardashian, had texted him about the pair being intimate while he was still married to her. Now, Kanye West, I'm in no doubt whatsoever, is a troubled individual. Very troubled individual, but also not more than that, but also as well as that, he's also absolutely porn addicted and porn addled. No doubt about it. You only have to look at his current wife, Bianca Censori, who goes around half undressed, which I think is criminal because nobody has asked their permission of seeing this woman like practically naked in the street. Right. And then there was the incident when they were in Italy and she kind of had her head down there and they were on a boat and it was obvious what was taking place. And he is absolutely porn addled, no doubt about it. But he says a lot of good stuff as well. Makes a lot of sense. But nonetheless, he's got this, he's now facing and dealing with this lawsuit. But some of the details of it are absolutely horrible and repugnant, like where Kanye was texting her saying he wanted to have sex with, his wife's mother, Bianca Censori's mother. And apparently he has a real kink for wanting to have sex with the mothers of his girlfriends. And I believe all that about him. I think all of that is possible, allegedly. The drugging claims come after similar claims were actually made against Sean Combs. Similar thing. Dozens of women have said the same thing. They're saying, a lot of people are now saying that those oil bottles were not oil at all that was found with the Sean Puffy Combs, 1,500 bottles, but in fact that they were sedatives that were put on people's body, which made them sleepy, which made them vulnerable. And so we shall see what is going to happen with Kanye West. Very difficult to know, isn't it? So, I think a lot of the time, once settlement takes place, you're not going to hear anything about it. Not going to hear anything about it. But apparently what this assistant used to do was organize orgies for Kanye West, and who she claims was basically after so many of the women who work for him. Now, all of that, again, is highly possible because, unfortunately, people like Kanye West have been told that they can do whatever they want for a very long time, and they've been getting away with it. Randy said it's a play for them, fooling us. I need some of that oil to cure my insomnia, says Craig. The flesh spots. Yeah, all this chat on a Monday. Lol. What's going on? Synchronized soul. What's going on? Distractions so we do not see God, says Randy. Anyway, it's so nasty. Him and his long-term mate, Puffy, between Kanye and Puffy. But as I say, the assistant's, one of her jobs allegedly was to arrange for women to go to sex party orgies with West. And again, we're hearing a similar thing with Puffy. Similar thing. It is. Anyway, apparently what also happened was after Bianca Censori started working with Kanye West, in November 2020, their relationship was kind of heating up, and while his marriage was failing with Kim Kardashian. I always say, how did Kanye West manage to find somebody who's more of a stripper than his first wife? But he did somehow. And some people think that these women are under his spell in some way, that he's their handler, or indeed they could be his handler. Who knows? But either way, these are not good, positive energies in the world. And I'm absolutely certain that this year is going to be one of those years where we're going to get an absolute plethora of lawsuits, because I'm hearing of more that are potentially coming through as well against big name artists, which I'm not going to say because it's not confirmed yet. But when it is, I'll let you know. So bad when Kanye seemed to be having an episode put all over media. Yeah, Jasmine, wasn't that what the Kardashians did? Awful stuff. Disgusting. Instead of helping people, they spend their overpaid empty lives on debauchery. Good choice not, says Annie Ma. Absolutely. I agree with you, Annie. I agree with you. So it's all horrible and it leaves you feeling yucky, doesn't it? I mean, I just find it all kind of repugnant, really. Oof. Just the idea of it. And also, I can see that GB News is on our side again. And I say that with let me get this picture off the screen. And I say that with a big wide smile on my face, because they are promoting a new COVID variant. They're saying it's surging, spread being monitored closely, apparently, as officials tell Britons to take action. right? GB News absolutely behind the early promotion of it. Shame on them. Didn't they start out with this idea that they were going to be different? Of course they did, and they're not at all. What else? What else do I want to look at today? It's a lot of chat today. Do you all know what parricide is? Parricide is the killing of one's parents. So obviously there's a Netflix doc at the moment, which is about the Menendez brothers. Really heavy going. I knew the story. I knew the story about how the brothers had said that they had been abused by the father and the mother went along with it all for a happy life. The Menendez brothers were, well, the Menendez family were the American dream, weren't they? Father was a wealthy music industry executive, made good, came from poverty, made good. They lived in palatial surroundings. The two boys were apparently kind of, handsome and healthy and high achieving. And yet the father was abusing them systematically over a period of years. And eventually the brothers had enough and they took out the mum and the dad. And that was happening. But did anybody see the woman who murdered her parents? She's just been in prison, Virginia McCulloch. Right? Essex, she's in Essex. Did anybody see that video? It's extraordinary police interview. What to make of it? Is she a psychopath? Is she a sociopath? She said she was relieved for it to be over. So basically what happened was that in June 2019, she poisoned her father, John, with a fatal cocktail of prescription medication. And she'd accumulated the pills over a period of months. She crushed them up, cut them up, and then secreted them into alcoholic beverages. And the day after she killed her father, she then killed her mother, Virginia. Obviously, she decided it was time for her mother to go as well. And she beat her with a hammer and then finished her off. And for the next 4 years plus, the woman lived alongside her dead parents. And the police video that I saw was when the police finally arrived after there were numerous calls from people saying, we haven't seen these people for 4 years. And what actually benefited Virginia McCulloch was she killed them in 2019. And then, of course, 2020 and all C-19 happened. So it was lockdown. So she was able to hide it and disguise it. And she essentially put her father into something of a tomb, right? Very weird, composed with masonry blocks stacked together. And she put her mum in a sleeping bag and then placed her inside a wardrobe in an upstairs room. And I can't imagine whether there would have been a smell or not, because you'd think after 4+ years there would be, right? But it was the weirdest police encounter. So what had happened, it was the family doctor was really concerned and contacted the police, raised the alarm. That led to a missing person search, and that led to the police arriving at the home of McCulloch's, being greeted by Virginia, who didn't initially want them to come in. And then when eventually they came and they broke in the house anyway. And then she was like, oh, I can tell you where it all is. You want me to tell you? I'm not that evil. Cheer up. At least you got the bad guy. All of this sort of stuff. It was so weird. It was so weird. Rachel, it is a mad story. The stink would be so bad, right? All because of her financial difficulties. It was nuts watching the video, says Julie. Yeah, so that is a key part of it, right? Is because what she did was she spent the next 4 years basically manipulating, lying to family members, medical staff, financial institutions, the police, spending her parents' money, accruing large debts in their name. It went on and on. She's given life. And she accrued huge debts. But here's weird. A statement was released by her siblings. Where have her siblings been for all that period of time? Right. And they fondly remembering their parents as the loving couple they were. But it is peculiar. Where were the siblings? How did it take them that long to realize what was going on? Maybe there's a part of the story that I've missed here. I'm confused. Shug said, nothing surprises me at what the demented mind can do. That's the thing. The smell must have been horrendous, Kath. Yes, it must have been. Said they love the grandkids, said Crazy Bunny. Right. But a very peculiar story, very peculiar indeed. And rest in peace, mum and dad, because that's such a peculiar thing to do, isn't it? Kill your parents. So peculiar. Is it demonic? I suppose the neighbours should have noticed, says Drumstick. Long time. Anyway, in a statement, Detective Superintendent Rob Kirby said McCulloch lied about almost every aspect of her life, maintaining a charade to deceive everyone close to her and clearly taking advantage of her parents' goodwill. She is an intelligent manipulator who chose to kill her parents callously without a thought for them or those who continue to suffer as a result of their loss. The details of this case are just shocking. They're horrific. It's very bizarre. She's almost like, when she was talking, it's almost like she was like depressed. Her talk was like depressed. She was like, oh yeah, very factual, not emotive, mental. It's a proper psycho story. Yes, Kat, exactly. When things don't add up, they don't add up. I object. Yes, Trump bringing jobs back soon, says Frank. I got you right now. So queer as folk, says George. I have no idea what Trump has to do with that story, but who knows? Who ever knows? Right. Let me move on, my darling, wonderful people. There's loads of stuff that I don't want to make sure. An email from Alison, very interesting video that popped up on YouTube from a man called Graham MacArthur. Alison, I just want you to know I sent a message to Graham asking him if he'd like to come on. And it's really fascinating interview. Alison said, I hope you are well. I stumbled across this video on YouTube and the subject is very interesting. You're one of the very few journalists I trust with telling the truth. So I wanted to ask if you're aware of this story regarding Starmer, and if so, could you do a deep dive on it? Indeed. So as I say, Alison, I've sent out a request to George and Graham rather, and hopefully he'll join us one day. But it is very interesting about Starmer's history involving David Cameron. And viewer Jane contacted me about missing Brit mum and bride-to-be Victoria Taylor, who disappeared 2 weeks ago and has not been seen since. Lots of missing people. Lots of missing people. Jane said, morning, Sonia. Did you see this at all? Not much coverage that I've seen. Tried to send clip via Instagram, but couldn't. Many thanks. And Jane, so basically there's a number, I looked at the story, 5 unanswered questions about the missing mum's disappearance. 2 weeks today. 34-year-old bride-to-be, last seen on the morning of September the 30th, has not contacted loved ones since, sparking a huge search in the local area, which continues. She was last seen at an address in Moulton, North Yorkshire. They've recovered CCTV footage, which later captured Victoria buying a soft drink at a BP garage. But there is a question mark again about whether she went into the river. Now, I'm running out of fingers to count the amount of women who have apparently fallen into British rivers over the last couple of years. Rachel's not even heard about it. Right. So, well, basically, they're now questioning a number of things. And that is, did she travel out of town? Police say they are focusing their search in the Moulton Norton area near to where Victoria's belongings were found. Her social media apparently was still active in the hours after she vanished. So I think that's interesting as well. And there are obviously a number of outstanding questions regarding this. But again, I find that interesting. The whole, did she fall into the water thing? What's going on? What's going on? Remember the mysterious series of canal deaths a few years back as well? Yes. And also, obviously, of course, one of the most famous river deaths in recent times has been Nicola Bulley. Swimming in rivers must be a thing now, says Beats and Tapes. It is not as bad a crime as allowing money printers to enslave humanity. Oh, I think you're talking about something else. I hear you. I remember 3 women. What's that? I remember 3 women in that time frame alone who were found in water. Yeah, there's something wrong, good ship. Something weird. So, yes, in York. Armand said, this is interesting. I must look into this. Actually, it's more men drowning in Manchester, over 100. Goodness me. Goodness me, Armand. I must look into that. Blue Nomad is saying the same thing. Lots of men apparently fall into the canal in Bath. This is peculiar. These are not them taking their own lives. These are accidents, you're saying. Anyway, that's Victoria Taylor. Obviously, she's a mum. I hope she shows up soon. How distressing all these things are. Very. Serial killers. Yeah, what's that? Yeah, it was young men being pushed into the river. What? Dilip said it's because of climate change. Well, obviously he's not serious, but I completely take his point. NI government consults on mandatory vaccines and other things. I know that there was a protest in Belfast, Northern Ireland at the weekend as thousands gathered as the crowd. This is from Fiona Rose Diamond, who wrote, "Thousands gather as the crowd builds to stand against the draconian health bill that will be coming to England, don't doubt it, that seeks total control of a person's health during any stage declared emergency." And that's the bottom line. And we've on Friday's show, I put in the description an email address where you can write and oppose this. And today is the last day of consultation. So I will put it again in this description. And please write, even if you only write and say, "I completely oppose this. My body is sovereign. It's my body, my choice," because some of the things that they want. So basically what happened was that their Department of Health said that the Public Health Act of 1967 is out of date, too narrow, and needs to be modernized. So you know the direction they want to modernize it in. They want to have mandatory vaccines, that power of entry. This is scary. Some of the language in this section on its own is actually quite vague. It's led to speculation on social media. But and one of that is that officers could gain power of entry to your home, seize your possessions. But some of this isn't new. But some of this they are attempting to do in the UK, by the way, not in the UK, in England, by the way. The 1967 Public Health Act already allows for officers to enter any premises at all for the purposes of ascertaining whether there is or has been any breach of the rules. So why do they want to suddenly update this? Because what this consultation does is it proposes enhancing these powers. You know what that means. I mean, you only have to look over the last 4 years to see how totalitarian police can be when they are told to come against the public. It's awful. Drumstick says it's a fascist update. Yes, they do, Sam. Well, they already do that to vulnerable women and get away with it. Yes, they do, Sam. So those are the things they want. They want mandatory vaccines, power of entry, and meetings of people and groups. Now, you might be familiar with some of these from kind of like the C19 regulations, but they don't currently exist in any Northern Irish laws. And but what the Public Health Act wants to have the power to serve notice on any persons or groups of people requesting them to do or refrain from doing anything for the purpose of preventing the spread of infection. And Patty said, I love that, Patty. Patty says, "The phoenix rises out of the ashes, all will fall." We love the sound of that. It's corrupt to the core, Shug. Yes, it is. And Jasmine is refusing their jabs. Thank you very much. I hear you. I hear you loud and clear. And so what has the health department said? Well, in a statement, they said Northern Ireland needs to replace outdated public health legislation. It's more than 55 years old. We need legislation that covers infections and contamination from biological, chemical, and radiological sources and bring us into line with the rest of the UK. I see. George said, the WHO, largely financed by the insane Bill Gates and led by a man wanted for charges of genocide in his own Ethiopian country, will be our downfall. And not one of those words is a lie, shockingly. I think it feels like a planned collapse. It's certainly not organic, says Shug. I hear that. I absolutely do. Right. Let me have a look. What else? I'm looking at the time. It's 10:56. Don't want to miss anything. See what's happening. This employment rights bill that is currently being drafted, right? Provisions, okay. I mean, this is really troubling, right? So basically, the idea is that in the employment rights bill, let me break this down for you. This is about third-party harassment, right? I just want you to get your head around that. This is about third-party harassment. So if at your place of employment, you are subjected to third-party harassment, I'm going to explain what that is. They want to bring in a law. They want to update the employment law about that. Now let me break this down for you. So in other words, a lot of this is already covered by the Equality Act, right? Which covers all this perfectly. But they literally want to make casual interactions a criminal act. And so this is across retail, hospitality, entertainment, academic sectors. Businesses will have a legitimate legal interest in policing what members of the public say, because the update of this employment law is that the employer could sue them. So let me give you an example. You're waitressing in a pub and you overhear somebody talking about, I don't know, what Nigel Farage is doing or about immigration, and you don't like it, you feel offended by it. This new employment law would allow it that you could sue your boss for allowing and enabling this conversation to take place. Can you imagine what kind of impact and effect that's going to have on people and businesses? I know that they want to, it looks clear and plain that they want to get rid of anywhere that we congregate. Pubs being the pubs notoriously are extremely popular in England, have been for a very long time, and you get people from all across social classes, all different cultures, all mingling together in pubs, and oftentimes talking far more sense than you'll hear in the House of Parliament. It's pure evil, Stephen. Mary says, OMG, wake me up. Well, I'd like to, Mary. That's the whole point of this show. Wake up. So it is very, really, really troubling. It's going to have a chilling impact. It will be very wide-reaching, detrimental impacts across numerous industries. And what about when you have things like so-called controversial artists, you know, whether they're performing or launching a book or a product? Will the words spoken there or the title of the projects result in harassment lawsuits? You can see where this is all going, right? And that is, people will stop booking anybody who steps outside of the status quo. They'll stop booking them. Even worse than C19, which had a huge impact on the arts, because unless you supported the C19 narrative, you were basically persona non grata. So this is very, very serious. And although I'm not a major supporter of the Free Speech Union, I am glad that they've got behind this, because they are able to do certain things, because free speech is in peril. And the reason I say I'm not a major supporter of them, because they really just kind of like support their friends or people like them. They are not necessarily going to go out and support other people who, I mean, I've not seen them behind any of these so-called rioters as one example, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong. What's that, Martin? You're new to this channel, are you? Good. Well, welcome. Welcome. So yeah, free speech is in peril as ever. We've got to be careful here. Got to be seriously careful. I see that Professor James Tooley actually spoke to the Daily Telegraph about it. He's the Vice Chancellor of Buckingham University. He described the bill as deeply worrying and very dangerous for free speech on campus at universities. Universities have taken a real big hit over the last decade in terms of free speech, obviously been lost to the whole kind of gender, Black Lives Matter kind of agenda. And this is going to make it worse. It's going to make it worse. Yes, Randy, sometimes we laugh because there are no more tears left. It's not because we are cruel. Absolutely. And can I just say, just moving on from that, so please look out for that. And if you have any opportunity at all to write to your MP and say, I absolutely oppose the update of the Employment Rights Bill. Everything is already sufficiently covered by the Equality Act 2020. And the only reason they could possibly want to update it is as a further way to curb free speech. That's the only way. It is, Stella, another nudge towards Orwell's 1984. That can only be the reason. That can only be the reason. People, how was your sky yesterday? Mine was like a kind of coke addict had spluttered all over the earth. And Karen from Maidstone was pretty much the same. Let me bring up Karen's video. Oh, it's all over the place. There you go. Look at that. Look at those lines. That's not normal. Don't anybody tell me that's normal. That's insane. Absolutely insane. And I said to Karen, I'm going to use your video tomorrow, Karen. Oh, wow. We just had clouds here, says Holstein. I said to Karen, sky above me just like that regularly, says Patty. Looks like my sky most days, says Randy. Terrible. Terrible. Yeah, I hear you, Jay. What writing to MP is like writing to Darth Vader and asking him not to destroy the Death Star. I hear you. It's really just to put them on notice. But I have to say, let me just have a look at this again from the beginning. I find that extraordinary. I wrote back to Karen, said, I'm going to use one of your videos, Karen. She said, it's kind of like to paraphrase her. She's like, sometimes I just feel I'm going mad in thinking there's something in this. No, you're not. That is not normal. That's not normal. Don't anybody try and tell me it is, because it's not. Ridiculous. And yesterday, by the way, and also Jean contacted me. Thank you, Jean. Let me just see. What was this about? Oh, this was about Bill Gates being heavily invested in hurricane controlling patents. I have to do a deep dive on that. But thank you, Jean, for that heads up. And I'm going to look into that because that looks slightly mad and insane. But we've entered this period. I live near huge parks where I take my doggy, and they're deer parks as well. But we've entered the period of rutting. I don't know if you know what rutting is. That's when they conceive their babies. Well, I actually captured part of. I'm not going to show you animal porn, by the way, just to reassure you, but I actually captured part of. So the process is, what happens is the stags chase the does, right? So that they can mount them and they can make babies. And here's a little look at it, what it looks like. So the stag is not happy because didn't manage to catch the lady, which is a bit unfortunate. But I love that. See, that's where I get my grounding, out there in nature amongst animals. I love it. I love it very, very much. And can I say, wind is not green, says Trev. Trev is a regular viewer, and we love Trev round here. How are you, Trev, mate? And he sent me this image. Look at that. And he said, this is the steel used in the base of a wind turbine. To complete it, you still have to add between 600 and 800 cubic meters of concrete, which is a weight of nearly 2,000 tons. Once the wind turbine is dismantled, this base will forever be buried in the ground. Wind is not green. Trev, you're absolutely right. Madness. What are they doing to us? These people think we're idiots, don't they? They do. There's a couple more stories I want to do before I leave you today. First of all, a shout out to Simon. Good morning to you, Simon. Simon did contact his local MP, Sian Berry of the Greens. Although fat lot of you she was, eh? Sian Berry is his local MP, and she can't, well, this is not what Simon said, this is what I said. She can't even tell you what a woman is, so don't expect to get any help from that woman. She blocked me for making a video in which her Green Party entertained a pedo who abused and gave electric shocks to a child. That was why Sian Berry blocked me. But anyway, Simon, lovely Simon, our viewer, contacted her because Simon had seen this awful, that a mother is taking legal action to stop her Down syndrome son from being dated and covertly vaccinated against C19. The man is in his 30s. He's had sedatives secretly added to his tea and orange juice so he could receive the vaccine and booster shots. His mother plans to sue the local NHS care board for forced vaccination, calling it tantamount to assault and a violation of his human rights. And Simon is disabled, and he's brilliantly abled in so many, many respects, including his mind, sharp as a pin. And Simon wrote to Sian Berry and, of course, didn't get the results he wanted because he's absolutely horrified that something like this could happen to him, as indeed we all should be. What a state of affairs if we're getting to that. That's not okay. It's not okay at all. So well done, Simon. Well done, Simon. I'm not at all surprised you didn't get any result from her, but at least you tried. At least you tried, mate. And that's the important thing. What else? I have to say, when you think Butlins is family friendly, think again. I remember taking my daughter and her friend to Butlins during half term when they were 9 years old because it was a family friendly place. My daughter won a Dick and Dom dance competition. I nearly drowned her friend because there was this weird whirly thing in the pool and it whirled her away from me. Thankfully, I caught her. I digress. What we've seen is 5 trans-identified males who entered a female loo and they were promptly shooed out by Butlins security. However, Butlins have now suspended those 2 security guards who, it's alleged, violently dragged a group of trans women from women's toilets. The group were at Bangface, a 2-day electronic music event at the chain Skegness holiday camp on October the 5th, when it said the incident happened. And so it would appear that initially that Butlins didn't have a policy that they because the thing is, the Equality Act allows for single-sex spaces. So if you don't want somebody of the opposite sex coming into your toilet, you can stop that because the Equality Act allows for you to have a single-sex space. Anyway, these 5 males walked in and there was a big hoo-ha online about it. And this character called, I think, Ewan, who made a big hoo-ah about it and what were Butlins going to do with these security guards and everything. And Butlins did what we've come to expect from these awful, awful cowardice people. They put out a statement saying, as an inclusive business, we were very concerned to hear about this incident. Much to our disappointment, our third-party security contractor did not follow our processes despite being thoroughly briefed. Once we were made aware, they were immediately removed from duty for not handling the situation in line with our processes. We are in direct contact with those involved and are reviewing how we work with contractors. Well, I am reviewing what people think about Butlins, because Butlins is not family friendly. Now, I appreciate that event was for adults, but the point is that Butlins do not, on their website, on their booking site, have anything that alerts guests to this policy of allowing men to use all toilets and changing rooms. There is no provision for women and little children. And as I say, the Equality Act already exists so that we can have single-sex spaces if we wish. And I have to say that half term is coming up in the UK soon, and Butlins is a good place that people, because it's, you know, generally tends to be, you know, good value, and it's very cheesy and everything, but it's all good fun. And but half term is coming up, and I implore you, boycott Butlins, because it is not acceptable. Mixed sex toilets are not acceptable at a place that is supposed to be family friendly. Absolutely appalling. Yep, Kat, just boycott Butlins. That's all we need to do, folks. That is literally all we need to do. Philip is talking about the printed money. What are you talking about? Is that? Have you hit the Soul Sound is saying, Philip, if you hit the like button. And I'm thrilled to see that the UK column on Location show this weekend has been sold out. I'm talking at it. I can't wait. Very much looking forward to being there. I am, of course, as I say, one of the speakers, as is indeed Dr. Ahmed Malik, Bob Moran, and who else? Oh, David Miller, Piers Robinson, a whole load of people. Rachel Matthews from Colchester Council Watch. Very much looking forward to that. Saturday. Why is there only 250 likes? How many people have we got? And it's only 250 likes. People, don't disappoint me. Don't disappoint our mods. They will not be impressed. They won't be impressed. I'm telling you, they don't like stuff like that. And I see that Jeremy Vine received an apology in the High Court on behalf of Joey Barton after Barton called Vine a bike nonce and a pedo defender. Really stupidness. Joey Barton is an idiot, frankly, because after he's had to pay out a fair fortune, let's see, they settled the claim after 2 apologies were posted by Barton on X. Total of £110,000 damages were paid to Vine. And in the High Court on Friday, Joey Barton's barrister apologised, said the defendant accepts everything said on the claimant's behalf, the claimant being Jeremy Vine. The defendant wishes to apologise for the distress his publications caused. I knew as soon as I saw those tweets it was defamation, because he can't prove any of those things about Jeremy Vine. So he's libeling the man. And then what Barton did, because Barton is really, he's a child in a man's body, and he's a violent man. And but he, on Friday morning, when his barrister was in the High Court apologizing on his behalf, he was then posting a video of Jeremy Vine in high heels, and Joey Barton did a bike and a rainbow and said perfectly normal, nothing to see here. And actually in the High Court, he was accused of undermining the settlement process by doing it. And it's just really stupid. He's literally like a child, like he has more money than sense. It's ridiculous. Yes, Angie. It's 11:11, people. It's 11:11, but it's just stupid. Once you get to that stage, right, where you're having to apologise in the High Court, just sort your life out, mate. Get off social media. And big shout out to LGB Alliance. LGB Alliance was formed as a consequence of all the gender madness. I was at the inauguration meeting, which I think now was about what? Was it 4 years ago? Was it 2020? It was around about then. Anyway, they had their conference last week, and a group got in and released bags of live crickets in the main conference room. When people say it's both sides about the gender debate, it's not. It's not. That other side they're very psychotic. They're unwell. I mean, we already know that, because obviously if you think that, you know, you're born in the wrong body, there's an issue there. But they released bags of crickets which had to be killed. And that was just before an interview with gender clinic whistleblower and activist Jamie Reed. Really horrible stuff. And they are apparently from an organization called Trans Kids Deserve Better. that apparently is being run by adults. These adults stage stunts which center children and young people and put them at serious risk. They recently staged a recent occupation outside the Department for Education when children, some of them said to be no older than 13, camped outside the building on the pavement. So this was like a press release I received last night from Kate Barker, who's the chief executive of LGB Alliance. She said naturally she was upset about what happened. Conference takes an awful lot to organise. And actually that's the murder of those poor creatures as well. Just awful. Craig says he was born on the wrong planet. It's okay. And Jay said I was born in the wrong species. It's okay. All courts are kangaroo courts. All judges are corrupt. I disagree, Humphrey. I've had great experiences with judges and courts, oddly enough, but I understand there are issues. I want to show you something, though. Last week was the annual World Mental Health Day, and to highlight that day, my dear old friend Ray Burmistone had his now annual Take a Moment, which was staged on the main Piccadilly Circus light board in Piccadilly Circus, London. I'm happy to have contributed to that alongside a ton of people. There was an image of myself and my daughter. This is one of the pictures from the photo shoot that he took. There you go. I've got my eyes closed, as you can see. Ray is a massive photographer these days. Any major UK pictures, you know, that you see from Strictly Dancing to Youngblood, it's likely Ray is behind them. And Ray came up with the idea of take a moment to honour and acknowledge people who were struggling with mental health difficulties, and the idea of him photographing people with their eyes closed is the idea that you take a moment, just kind of like to think. And loads of people were involved in that exhibition. Loads and loads of people. Fatboy Slim, Louis Theroux, Brian May from Queen, Noel Fielding, Ollie Murs, Eddie Izzard, Damian Lewis, Emily Attuck, Junior Andre and Oti Mabusi, and Hannah Waddingham, who I like very much. Loads and loads and loads of people. I was the least famous amongst them all, but I was absolutely honoured to be there. And it's simply about taking a few seconds every day for our mental health. And I like it. Yes, you smile a lot. I do smile a lot, Randy. I'm a smiler. I am a smiler. Indeed, I am. And also, before I come on to the final one, this week, look out for a long form interview I did with Dr. Simon Elmer about the Great Replacement. It's based on his series of brilliant articles about the policy. And I mentioned it earlier, and I'm just going to give you a little preview. Before we get to that, though, I'd like to point this out because I think it's really important, and that is the climate in which we're having this conversation, which is a horrible climate where we are seeing people literally imprisoned for social media posts, whereas real criminals are being released because there's not enough prison places. We have a former director of public prosecution who is now obviously the Prime Minister. He appears to see everything through a lens of great punishment. That appears apparent. Then we have the most senior cop in England and Wales who is telling us that even questioning whether there is a two-tier policing taking place could in itself be criminal. That is the environment in which Simon and I are having this conversation. And I think it's really important to point that out, because in many years' time, when people watch this video, they will be able to see the context in which this conversation took place. Right, Simon, I just wanted to say that really. Is there any comment you wanted to make about that? The very environment itself, which is how you start your series of articles.
Yeah. Yes, I responded to, literally in response to the arrests that were being made for people making comments on online, but also the Online Safety Act 2023 came into effect last October, which has severe punishments for someone who is knowingly publishing something they know to be false, or is trying to. There's reasonable grounds for expecting that publishing this will cause physical or psychological harm. So I start off with a kind of a legal disclaimer under Section 179 of the Act, saying, I believe this all to be true because it came from government sources overwhelmingly, this data, and I certainly don't intend to cause any harm by doing it. Having said that, Sonia, I made a decision not to start publishing these articles until I was back in Hong Kong.
Wow.
I didn't want to get a knock from Starmer's online thought police materializing at my door, because it would cause a lot of problems about me getting back to Hong Kong. I hope he won't reach out to me here. But yeah, we are under. We talked about this last time in our shorter conversation about how Starmer has presented himself as a policeman. He's ruling by police.
It's one of the most powerful interviews I've done in a very long time. It's about an hour and 20 minutes. And it's so like the evidence and information that Simon comes with literally blew my mind, No, Craig is asking me if I need a week, so I'm rocking backwards and forwards. I do sometimes rock backwards and forwards, by the way. I don't know what that is exactly. I think it might be some kind of comforter. I don't know. It's weird. Right. I want to come on to the last thing. So yes, that will be out this week. I see some people saying, is this on Run? But it should be available on Wednesday. So I will obviously put links available to it. And they have tried, and they can make your life hell, as our Sonia is still experiencing. Yes, I go through it sometimes. Right. We've arrived at the end of our show, people. And I want to send out a message to you all. Stop playing small. It's time to shine. Oh, yes, it is. Aries full moon. Never has there been a better time. As I said before, earlier in this show, Aries represents me first. It's the start of the astrological year in some respects, because Aries is the first sign in astrology. And Aries full moon is the time when those things that we started to do that were brand new are now either coming to fruition and working, or they're not. This week, it will tell you if something that you believe in has legs or it doesn't, right? If the seeds that you planted are working for you, then you cultivate that crop this week. You have to harvest it. But if not, then you have to look at what you are planting, right? Do you feel what I'm saying? Do you get what I'm saying? So my thing is people play small all the time. Like, you know, they say don't hide your light under a bushel and stuff like that. People do that all the time. They act as if they're insignificant, as if they have no contribution to make this world. And I'm here to tell you, BS. Don't think I've ever met even one person who doesn't have a contribution to make if they wanted to. So I'm going to read, rather than end the show with a quote, I'm going to read a quote before I actually get into encouraging you not to think small, because I think this is one of the best that I've ever heard. And if I can find it, of course. And it's this one. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. And it does. That beautiful quote from Marianne Williamson. I absolutely love that. And if you want to know how to stop playing small, right, but you might even be unfamiliar with the term playing small, and it basically means hiding parts of yourself or settling for less than you deserve, right? Maybe because you don't want to offend somebody or you don't want to eclipse them. So what, right? This is not about somebody else. This is about you. This is about you. Puffing out your chest and being the very best that you can be, your most authentic self, realizing yourself, right? And people play small for all manner of reasons. And don't do it. I'm not talking about being an a-hole or being arrogant or insufferable. I'm saying remembering who you are and why you're here. And, you know, the thing is about playing small, it can also mean settling for less than what you really want. And who wants that? What kind of life is that? I think life is comparatively very short. So at least the least you should do is go for what you want, right? Get honest with yourself, right? Slow down and spend time getting to know yourself, your needs and your wants. 2 lists, people. What I need, what I want. What's the thing crossing over? Those are the things you need to focus on, right? You deserve this. You deserve so much more. Tell my missus that. Don't think of it as small, says Beats and Tapes. I think might be thinking about something else there. And don't be afraid to ask for what you want, right? Literally, like I say to the universe, like by the end of the year, by the start of next year, I would like a production team. In fact, I said by the 30th show, I wanted to be able to have production working. And I actually did for the 30th show. And then I couldn't for the 31st and the 32nd or whatever. But then we managed to get it up and running. And now we're all singing or dancing, aren't we? And that was me throwing out my intentions to the universe. This is what I want to do. I want to bring together our production. If you need a theme tune, don't use AI. Use my husband. He could do with the work, says Rachel C. People are sending in their theme tunes. I'll play some more on Friday. Don't worry. And also change your focus. Many of us focus on what we don't want or the difficulties we have. As a result, we get more of the same. So don't be going, oh, I haven't got much money. No. Say, I've got plenty, right? I'm abundant. I have everything I need. And honestly, it is amazing how things change. I'm not necessarily talking about the law of attraction, but positive mindset is so vital. Make yourself a priority. You matter. You count. Yes, you do. And I'm here to tell you that. Vanessa said there is a wonderful future ahead. Paradise Earth with no sickness and death. True peace and security. You talk about another one. I am a beacon for empaths. Shug. Can't help myself. I'm an empath myself. State of mind is everything, says Craig, Somerset Squirrel. Yes, it is. State of mind is absolutely, utterly vital. It's the last day to sign what, says Kennedy? The National Northern Ireland Health Bill to fight against it. I'm going to put it in the an email address in the description, Kennedy, and write to them and say, we oppose mandatory vaccinations and updates. You're welcome, Julie. Absolutely welcome. And here's Shinri's song based on that quote. What quote was that? Life is what you make it. Yes. Oh, about fear. Yes. I did, James. Sonia, you outlived TNT. Woohoo. Yes, I did. Absolutely. I did. Did you see the latest videos with kids entering the premises in daytime? I don't know what that sounds like. A cult. Paradise on earth. I don't know what's going on, but I just want to say to you, listen, remember who you are. You count. Stop thinking small. Think big. This is the week to do it. Just get out there and kick butt. You can do it. I have got total faith in you. And I just want to thank you all for being here. We've gone on much longer than I should have. 11:24, but I love you loads. Have a fantastic week. And I will see you Friday. Go kick butt because you know you're worth it. See you Friday.